Good evening.
Yes.
Tonight is Thursday, March 6, 2025. This is Ann Horner, and this is the Council Rock School Facilities Committee meeting. And I'll start with sending it right over to Ms. Binda. Oh, and roll call starting to my left.
Ed Tate, School Board.
Tracy Oseki, School Board. Jessica Binda, Supervisor of Facilities.
Tony Rapp, Director of Business Administration.
Andy Sanko, Superintendent.
Michael Roosevelt, School Board.
David Schrader, architect.
Doug Taylor, CHA Consulting.
Jennifer Piley, School Board.
Nicole Khan, School Board.
Linda Stone, School Board.
Matthew McCarthy, Tech Integration.
Bob Hickey, School Board.
All right. Now I'll send it over to Ms. Binda.
Thank you. As a reminder that for reliable, accurate, and up-to-date information about our district, please refer to resources, websites, and social media platforms managed by the Council Rock School District. Especially in regard to the master facilities plan we will be discussing this evening, we urge the community to be judicious in choosing where to obtain information. Recently, there was a newspaper article that mischaracterized the progress of our work. We want it to be clear that at this time, no master plan has yet been approved by the Council Rock School Board. In addition, we caution the public about relying on social media for accurate information, as unauthorized accounts using the Council Rock name post false and misleading information regarding Council Rock matters. If you question what you are seeing, need additional details, or a reliable fact check, please contact the district directly. Our contact information is readily available at our website at crsd.org. Okay, our agenda items this evening are the Sol Finestone Elementary School environmental update, along with the Welsh and Churchville Elementary's environmental update. We have the Council Rock High School North boiler repair, Richboro Elementary School change orders, the summer 2025 bid results and recommendations, and continuing our conversations on the district-wide facility study master plan. So to start off the evening with Sol Finestone Elementary School environmental update, as many of you know, a leak in a Sunoco kerosene line was discovered in the Mount Ayr neighborhood of Upper Makefield Township that has impacted 6 wells to date. The Mount Ayr neighborhood is located in the Hughes Creek watershed. The Sol Finestone Elementary School is located up gradient in the adjacent Jericho Creek watershed. The well water, so making sure everybody understands, we are in a different watershed than where the leak has been discovered. So we do not have any issues at Sol Finestone Elementary. I also want to highlight that well water at Sol Finestone Elementary is required to be tested by a qualified lab monthly. So we do make sure that we definitely test the water that the students are using. We will continue to monitor the situation, and then there's a link available for anybody that wants any kind of additional information from Upper Makefield Township.
Yeah, actually I have a comment. So it's more than 6, and the way the grounds are, they describe is fractured, so it can travel in many different directions, and they recommend everybody to have their water tested in different ways, because the way some testing has been done was not really complete. They tested, I think, the bottom of the well instead of going to the top, and the oil goes to the top. So we're not out of the woods. I think it's a lot of concern, and the more we test Sol Finestone and all the waters in the area, the better off we're going to be. So, yeah, as you said, the link there will be the information.
Yep. Thank you.
Questions?
I have a question. Would there be Nicole Khan, would there be a reason for any additional testing because of this current situation and not knowing exactly if we were planning to test at all more frequently than the monthly that we typically do?
So based on the environmental consultants that we have discussed this with, they don't believe that we have the need to test additional at this time. We continue, like I said, we continue to monitor the information that's available. We did have a representative at the meeting, I believe it was last week, to gather more information. And we keep testing to make sure that there's nothing to be concerned about. Even outside of this, we still have to test monthly. So at this point in time, our environmental consultants have not recommended that we do any additional testing.
Thank you.
No one else? We're good.
Okay. On to Welsh and Churchville Elementary's environmental update. PFA groundwater contamination has been discovered at Northampton Township, impacting private wells near Welsh and Churchville. Both Welsh and Churchville are both on public water systems served by the Northampton Bucks County Municipal Authority. So we do not use well water at either one of those schools. We are on public water. Water authorities are required to test for PFAS beginning in 2024. They actually tested for this well before, but starting in 2024, they have to release it in their yearly reports. So we do not believe that there's any issues here. Again, we talked to many environmental consultants, and they suggested that we keep status quo because we are on the public water system, and information now is just based on well water. So again, we'll continue to monitor the situation. We pay attention to both Northampton Township and the link below, which covers what the remediation work that the Navy is doing. So that's what I have for both Churchville and Welsh.
Any questions?
Next item is the Council Rock High School North boiler repair. Currently, we do have 3 boilers at North. Boiler number 1 has a cracked section and is currently leaking. So the boilers that we have are cast iron boilers. Cast iron boilers are comprised of sections. I believe these boilers have 17 sections. When one of those sections cracks, starts leaking from the boiler, and it becomes less efficient and eventually gets to the point where you can no longer use the boiler. North can operate on 2 boilers, but if we have an issue with one of the other components in one of the other boilers, and we're down to just boiler number 1 and say boiler number 3, we can't keep the building heated. So we do need to make a repair to boiler number 1. It's obviously operating at a reduced capacity at this point. So we do have to sole source the Burnham cast iron sections from J. Lorber Company with a 4-week lead time. And we did receive 3 quotes on the installation, and the quotes include all required safeties and state inspections. Again, these boilers are leaking water. This boiler is leaking water. There is no hazard to any staff or students in the building. It starts at a reduced capacity, and then the crack gets worse to the point where it can't hold water, so you have to turn it off. So we are recommended to obviously buy the sections from Lorber because they are the sole provider for Burnham in this area. And then also to go with industrial boiler, the amount of $24,585. Again, we received 3 quotes. We had 5 contractors out. 2 of them could not quote, but industrial boiler was lower. So the total would be $62,030, and this would be covered by the facilities budget.
Any questions? Mrs. Khan?
How long has it been, it says boiler has been operating at a reduced capacity. How long has it been?
At end of January,
Okay.
it started, we discovered it. So we worked through the month of February to get pricing, get contractors out to do a survey, and get us pricing as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Ms. Oseki?
So we know from the building that we're in, that leaking water is not good for anything around it. Has it damaged anything around it?
No, it's a good thing it's down in the basement boiler room.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
There's a drain right next to it, so as the water's leaking out, it's going right into the drain, so there's no damage to anything else.
Thank
Good, great question.
All right.
Ms. Kellen?
So if this gets approved, then what would be the timeline to get it fixed?
So it's about 4 weeks.
It says that.
Yep.
With the lead time and fixing all of that.
Yeah, so when we get the parts, then the contractor, industrial boiler will be there to repair it. I don't have, let me see if he has a timeline for the actual work on his quote real quick. It's 18 sections, not 17. He does not have a timeline on his, for the work to be done.
Guess we can find that out,
Yeah,
right?
find that out.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Next item is the Richboro Elementary School change orders. Bear with me, they're not all positives. Some of them are deducts. The first one is furnish and install new engineered wood fiber at the existing kindergarten playground. Includes the removal and disposal of 12 inches of existing mulch and soil. So within the project, we did not have the engineered wood fiber to be replaced. But through construction and, working in that back area, it became quickly apparent that we needed to make sure that we changed the wood fiber. So it would be an add to Penn Builders, a change order as $31,798.50. The big evaluation we did here was to see how much it cost for us to purchase the same quantity of wood fiber and for my team to install it. And the cost of that was very similar to what Penn Builders did or provided us. So we decided to go with Penn Builders because my grounds crew, with spring sports coming up, they have quickly become extremely busy. So it made sense to go, financially it made sense to go with Penn Builders.
Mr. Roosevelt?
Wasn't this included in the playground update that we were processed into, where they're adding or either part or a whole bunch of playground equipment and doing the mulch?
That is a great question. So, and I forgot to mention that, so we had, that playground we did is for 1st through 6th. This playground is for the kindergarten playground only. So we have 2 separate
The other
playgrounds.
side of the building?
Yes,
Right.
yes. So we did do all the wood fiber in the new playground, but this was the existing one that we kept.
Okay.
Mr. Holdato?
How many square feet are we talking?
So it would be cubic yards of material.
Just the area, I know it's 12 inches, just wonder what the area is.
It's 244 cubic yards.
Do you
So,
know the size of the square feet of the?
I don't have the square foot, yeah,
I could do that.
4,370 square feet.
Thank you,
Mm-hmm.
that's it.
Anyone else?
Okay. The next 3 items are credits for unused allowance money on the project. So we have Borough Construction for the electrical contractor, a deduct of $61,573.20. And Tri-County Mechanical, the mechanical contractor, with a deduct of $103,459.61. And Guy M. Cooper, the plumbing contractor, for a deduct of $14,411. Again, this is a credit for unused allowance money. So this is money that we are not spending. This is not money that we get back into our pocket. It just means we're not putting out.
It was in the project budget.
Yes, it was in the project budget, so this is money just we will not be spending.
Any questions?
And then I'm going to hand it over to Doug Taylor to talk about our summer 2025 bid results and recommendations.
Sure, thank you. So we had the list of projects that are in front of you out for bid. We had very good bid competition for these projects. There, was this distributed? Okay. So there were a significant number of bidders for each project. And this will probably be in the board packet. Okay. So Churchville Elementary School facade and site fencing is a project where we were having some challenges with some access to the roof. So this is a cure to try to prevent that from happening down the road. Also some fence modifications that will avoid some access from mechanical corral as well. This project came in, bid results were $110,950. The budget was $169,000, so it was about $58,000 below the original budget. The second project is the natatorium dehumidification and UV replacement. So the UV replacement part of this is there's a control panel within the space that's in a corrosive environment that needs to be relocated around the corner to a space where it'll have a little more longevity than it has in the space it's in. So the project includes relocating that panel for the filtration around the corner. The bigger part of the project, though, is there's 2 existing dehumidification units on the roof for the pool, and they are at the end of their useful life, and I know Jess is challenged to keep them up and running as it is. So it's replacing those in kind, and there's also some additional work associated with dunnage to put the new units on the new steel frame galvanized dunnage that goes in place. And in addition, we had to add some additional ventilation at the pool level to take the chloramine gases out. Do you want me to go through this at this level? Is this,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
And pull the chlorine gases out of the space, because right now, doing what we're doing, we had to bring the space up to current code. We weren't pulling those gases off the surface of the pool, so it will make for a better swimming environment for the students as well. So this scope did increase because we didn't have that chloramine gas piece, a couple vents, power vents that we had to add to the roof to do so, and some other mechanical work associated with it. So this project was $1,318,000. We had originally planned around $865,000, so it was an increase with that added scope of about $453,000. Again, we had significant bid competition, and that number was a very favorable number. The tennis court project is basically going to north and taking there's sections of fencing that need to come out to gain access to the courts, so you can actually bring milling equipment in, mill all of the courts down, and put a new surface down. So they're taking an 1.5 inches of asphalt out, putting a new virgin asphalt surface down, and a new all-weather surface on top of that that's painted 2 different color court lines, and all new tennis nets and poles along with that, and then restoring the fence. There's also an alternate that we're recommending. There's a little basketball court in the upper corner that faces the shopping center that had some plastic sport court material on it when they were redone last, which was 10 years ago, probably. And that surface is not performing very well. So this includes taking that out, milling and overlaying those, and restoring those back to all-weather surface courts in that same area, and actually enclosing that with fencing that is absent from that area now, so the balls aren't going into the woods and into the shopping center property. So that project was estimated at $1 million. The bids came in at $879,766. So they were about 120,000 below the budget. So a very favorable number and a good contractor for that. The North Caston.
Hold on, Doug, before you move on, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I just wanted to highlight that a community member very gratefully sent us an opportunity for a grant application for the tennis courts. So we're going through that application now to see if we can qualify for some additional funding from, I think it's the US Tennis Association. So if she's listening, thank you very much for sending that. We always welcome, if someone sees something, we might not, I'm not on the Tennis Association website, so if you see something, send it over so we can quickly evaluate it and hopefully get some additional money. Sorry, Doug, go ahead.
No, that's okay. We're also adding some pickleball lines to
Yes.
those courts as well, to a series of those courts. So there'll be ability for pickleball as well. The North Caston Place structural repairs, when those honeycomb sections were removed from that building, there was one large window opening adjacent to the main entrance of the school where the window system is still in place. It's the only window that's the clear anodized aluminum. It's a curtain wall system, pretty significant window system into a stair tower. The cast in place concrete around it is problematic. It's falling, it needs to be repaired. There's water that's gotten into it, the rebar behind it is expanding, it's pushing the concrete off, and it's actually following inside the building as well. So in the stair tower, there are areas of concrete above the window that are broken loose that we need to take care of from a safety perspective. So it's actually gotten worse from when it initially was identified. So this is a project that the contractor will come in, they'll take that large window system out, they'll perform the repairs to the concrete around it, they'll put a new color coating on it, and then put a new curtain wall system back in its place. So that was originally budgeted for $323,483. No, it was budgeted for $175. It came in at $323,483, and so it's an additional cost of $148,000. And primarily because that scope of work did have to continue into the inside of the building, and there's some additional roof patching and work that has to happen now. We have to take the roof edge off to get to some of that concrete. And logistically, it's a pretty challenging project. So that is the cost for that. The next is the north and south painting and flooring replacement. This is a project that includes at both schools the library spaces, the cafeteria spaces for paint, and the nurses suite at both schools for painting. And then the flooring, new antimicrobial carpet tile in both of the music suites at both north and south. There's also some impact to the price of this project. This was budgeted at $300,000. The bids came in at $335,728. So a difference of about $35,000. We do have to, at south, at all of the railings in the cafeteria, basically strip those down to steel. They're actually not, the paint's not bonded to those now. There's a problem where they've been trying to be touched up over the years and it's just not responding any longer. So those are being stripped and totally reprimed and painted. We're including the trusses, the exposed trusses at south in the library, and we're requiring the contractor to go in and take the perimeter stacks out of the library so they can paint those walls behind the stacks along the perimeter as well. So there's some added scope to that. The next project is the wood gym floor replacement at North and Holland Middle School. This project includes removing the bleachers to get to the actual floors, taking the floors out down to concrete, putting new wood gym floors back in place, new sleeper system, new wood gym floors, all new lines, obviously. We're working with the athletic directors to make sure that we get the striping and details that they wanted in those new bases around the perimeter of those. They'll then have to make adjustments to the basketball backstops to ensure that we're having the appropriate height from finished floor to the rims. Also, all of the movable partitions at north have to be adjusted so that they're still gliding above the floor, and then all the bleachers get reinstalled. So those gym floors were budgeted at $896,000. The bids came in at $935,000, a difference of about $39,000. So again, numbers that are very close to what we had planned for these projects. And then lastly is the Welsh and Holland Elementary School paving project. Both of these parking lots are pretty tired. They need to be milled and overlaid. There's not really room for just crack repairs at this point. So this includes going in and milling 1.5 inches off of the entire parking lot, putting new wearing course back in, all new striping, all new whatever painted graphics are out there as well. And at Holland, it also includes taking care of the there's a little bit of parking that's adjacent to the YMCA program, if you're familiar with Holland, that is stone that's constantly washing into the parking lot and creating a lot of issues for maintenance and stones all over the lot. And so this includes putting some actual perimeter curb in there, taking the stone out and putting a wearing surface, a new paving surface in that area with striping. It picks up a couple additional parking spots, and it still maintains the access to the YMCA program that they require to kind of come through. Andy knows this one well. Comes through that property to get to their pavilion and to their pool. And also included in this is sidewalk replacements where they are problematic, some isolated areas of paving and some curbs that are problematic, so that we're addressing those before we paving them. And that was budgeted at $1.3 million. The bids came in at $590,000, so we were a savings in that project of about $700,000, all said and done, including some total paving replacement at Welsh. We actually have some areas that is more than mill and overlay. We're actually going to go down and take the entire section of paving down to stone and restore some of that. It's pretty bad when you first come in the lot and you turn the corner into the main parking lot. It needs to be totally replaced. So the overall picture on those then, with fees and contingency, we had budgeted in the capital improvement plan. It was a $6,116,500 budget in the plan. We knew the budget needed to be under $6 million, which is what the tag was for the district. They came in at $885,349. So we were about $200,000 under the plan. If you look at it as a $6 million project, we're about $115,000 under budget. And that still includes us carrying about $500,000 in contingencies to manage these projects. So we're in really good shape.
Doug, can you please talk about the wood floor bids and how we needed to disqualify the low bid?
Right, so the wood floor bids, we did have a contractor that was the apparent low. They were about $100,000 lower than the person that's being awarded the project. There were some documents that were not included with their bid. There's a certified letter of insurer that basically tells us that they have an insurance provider that's going to meet the intent of the insurance requirements, and they're certifying that they will meet that when we award the project. And a short memo that basically says that they're going to be bonded, for this project, through the project. And those two documents were missing from this bidder's. They're very significant documents. They should be in the bid set or in the bid package. In addition, the qualifications were challenged. We did make them aware of that, and we had the district solicitor take a look at the qualifications as well as the absence of those two documents. They concurred that they should be removed as a non-responsive bid. And then it was awarded to the next low, which is a contractor that specializes in wood floors. They do hundreds of floors a year. They're a significant company, and they are being awarded the job. So we're in really good hands. All of these contractors we have experience with. I would say the masonry restoration guy, we don't, but we called their references and we couldn't hear enough good things about the contractor doing that work. So we're in good shape.
Mr. Roosevelt?
Hey Doug, couple of questions on a couple of these items. So the first, this bid 25-4, north structural repairs and window replacement. Where is that water infiltration coming into and then penetrating to get to the rebar? Is that coming from the roof that you're talking about, or parapet, or?
It's coming from the facade, it's coming from the exterior. It's actually, there are a series of cracks within the cast-in-place concrete that the water is getting into those cracks. Even though it was coated, the cracks are open.
Right.
And it's just getting into that system, and it's failing from, the inside out.
This project aims to not only correct the problem, but correct the penetration point that the water's coming in.
Yeah, there's 3 series of repairs that are required, depending on if it's a spall, if it's a elongated crack. A lot of it's just gonna require them to take off what is there, put a new form in place.
Right.
Prepare that rebar, protect the rebar, protect it from further corrosion, and then put new concrete material.
It was a couple summers ago that we did the octagon removal of
Yes.
this. Was this not identified at that time, and if so, why not?
This was not included in the octagon replacement. This was the one window that during the original renovation project, somebody removed the octagon. We suspect that might have had something to do with some of the damage to the cast-in-place concrete, because if you didn't take those small sections out surgically from the top
Yeah.
and then slowly work to pull these out and just pulled, the depth of those was so great that if you pulled, it was pull on the actual
Right.
structure itself. So this was not, we did just put a coating on it at the time to try to protect it from any further deterioration, but this wasn't included in that project.
So now with this though, the entire front facade that used to be octagons is all gonna be different, and it's all gonna be watertight.
It'll all be watertight, it'll all be consistent too. There'll be the dark bronze anodized storefront or curtain wall that'll match all the other windows.
Good. The next question is 25-16, the north and Holland Middle wood gym floor replacement. HMS was renovated like about 6 years ago, and part of that included the gym floors. So are we saying that there's something wrong with HMS's gym floor?
We actually did not replace the wood floor when we renovated that building. It still had a lot of 6-7 years of life in it.
Okay,
So it wasn't at that time, we're like, hey, let's give this thing another 6 or 7 years and not spend the money now.
okay,
So that is an original floor from the 70s
okay.
that has lasted a long, long time. But it's to the point now when you perform that sanding operation, you start getting very close to that tongue.
Right,
Yeah, so we're getting very close to the tongue, and there's some dead spots, and it's been around. It's definitely ready for a new.
okay,
That's a good question, but no, we just extended the life of it longer. That's all.
okay. Well, definitely did a good job back then.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Mr. Hickey?
Yeah, it's funny that you asked about the gym floors, because I was gonna ask about it as well. How long do these floors last? I mean, because from what you're saying, I think you said the cost was $1 million for 2 floors?
The cost is $935 for 2 floors.
So-
North is a giant floor. North is a very big gym.
It just sounds like an astronomical number for a gym floor. How long do these gym floors last?
I usually get 30 years out of a wood gym floor.
And then we also periodically have to refinish them as well, correct?
So each summer, we used to screen.
Still do.
Screen the floor and screen it and put, new finish down to extend the life. And then every 5 years or so, you go in and sand it and do something more substantial. But, you have to maintain them each year.
Yeah, and then the other question I have, because it seems like this pops up every year, and I don't know what the long-term solution is. The 25-12, the natatorium, that's another project that's also north of $1 million. And it seems like every time at this time of the year, we're doing some major work to this natatorium over at North. I mean, at some point, is it worth not doing all this major work and maybe doing something else? I mean, I don't know how much a natatorium is worth or how much like I said, it just seems every year it's hundreds, or in this case, millions of dollars to work on the natatorium. Any reason? I mean, is it that dilapidated?
So the infrastructure, some of that infrastructure at North is tired, which is why we're kind of talking about North and, what to do moving forward. That natatorium has been renovated, it's been expanded. It's a nice natatorium space. It's definitely, used heavily. The equipment, the dehumidification units they've been around a long time as well. It might be the original dehumidification units.
One of them is, and then there was one added when the addition was put on.
Right.
And so the one that was original is out of commission. The one was the addition, we're having major problems with the compressors to keep the dehumidification going.
And last year, we actually put in the pool boiler to actually try to save some money in the natatorium to provide heating, for that pool water separate and not having to run the existing boilers to bring water into that space. So we put a heat exchanger in and a pool boiler so that it would it'd be self-sufficient. So.
And by putting the ventilation that Doug was talking about, that's pulling those chlorine gases off of that water surface, we're hoping to make that the atmosphere is less corrosive so that less things start breaking down there. The chlorine just destroys everything that's in that natatorium. But you're right, it is a lot of money that we do continually spend on the natatorium. But that's what's required to keep the pool operational.
Then we had to be creative with how are we going to add 2 grills down low by the pool in a pool that's already constructed, right? Without
Creating hazards.
surface mounting something that is unsightly and won't, sustain itself. So we were able to use the storage room and kind of get behind the wall and put these grills in a wall. And then on top of the storage room, run some duct and then up some column that are between clear story windows and then on the bottom and then up through the roof. So there's some things that had to be done to incorporate this into a space that, already exists.
And I guess it's just another question, I just looked at the bottom and I don't know what we can do about it, but maybe it would help as we go through later on with our renovation projects. As I look at Marine M. Welsh, a lot of people tell me that just what Marine Welsh needs is a good coat of paint on the inside of that building.
No. We have electrical issues there. The mechanical equipment is from 2000. So most of it's beyond its useful life. There's a lot of cosmetic repairs that need to be made. Like when we were walking through a week or so ago about looking at painting, there's some terrazzo base that we need to get repaired. The lighting is from 2000, so it's all like old lighting. It needs to be updated with LED. There's a lot of work. I think the roof is going to, we're 25 years, so the roof's tired, so there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. It's not just a coat of paint. Hey, if it was a coat of paint, we are painting right now to refresh some of the areas until we hopefully get to a renovation, but if it was just a coat of paint, that's what we would be recommending, but it's not a coat of paint.
We've actually extended that roof. It was some single ply membrane, and a lot of those areas we put a coating on to get an extra 10 years out of that. So we've been trying to be responsible with, with the cost of that building.
Okay.
Any other questions? Doug, I did want to ask, you mentioned Holland Elementary with the YMCA over the summer, and they're, to be aware that there'll be some interruption there and some workaround, right? Maureen Welch as well, don't they have the township access back there, and they also have some programs, so is that going to be communicated?
Yes, we coordinate heavily with both of those programs, and the project manager on site, whoever that may be this year, we make sure that we are in day-to-day communication with the groups to say, okay, we're we're working in this area today, so you guys need to use these exits and entrances. It's a day-to-day conversation with both organizations. In fact, we did Churchville last year with camps there, and what other school did we do? South was the summer before that, wasn't it? South was a heavy communication one because
South
there's.
was last year.
Was it last year? They're starting to blend together now. South was a heavy communication because we had camps and the massive amount of paving that we did there. We were not constantly, but we were working with school staff to flip people from parking from one area to the next. And then, the following week, we flipped back so that we could mill and pave the upper lots with all the sports camps. And our project manager was wonderful with communication and making sure that we knew where we were going to be and where they needed to be.
Once the board approves this, we, would want to meet with the YMCA
Yes.
folks so that we can strategize early and they can have a plan, and we'll talk about the timing. We have a pre-construction meeting with the contractor. We'll get further details and phasing and dates, and then we'll work together with those entities so they're aware of what's going on.
And when we started talking about this project, I reached out to I forget what her name is, but I reached out to her to give her heads up that we were looking at doing this project this coming summer. So they know it's coming, so once we approve, we'll definitely meet with them and the contractor to start coordinating. Because there'll also be a camp at Holland Elementary, so we'll have the YMCA and the camp to kind of coordinate both. But that's why we have somebody on site all summer long.
I just wanted to remind the board that we did go out to bid for the management of these projects this year, which actually kind of put us behind the 8 ball timing-wise, to get these bid out and in time to get the projects done. And I want to say that, with that, we looked at several other companies and find that it actually wasn't a bid, it was an RFP, and we did find that CHA gave us the best value and the best service. So, but we want to thank CHA and Jess for doing a good job in getting this turned around so quickly so that we can get these projects done this summer. We had contractors come out and say they wouldn't be able to do it. Some of the management companies, said that. So.
Thank you. The other thing I should mention is that savings of $115,000 for these projects before construction does also include us allocating the $500,000 for the Churchville control. So that money is also coming out of this fund that you guys are doing separate, but that's included in here when we look at that overall project cost. So including that 500,000, we're still 114 below your 6 million. Thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Rebecca?
Sure. The bid results, there's one screen. Is this going to be something you're trying to get on the agenda next week? Where are the prices? Do we usually get details, like a chart?
We do have the details. We didn't get them compiled quick enough because once we opened the bids and we had to do the evaluation, so we do have the details that we'll have available to you tomorrow.
Okay, I would say put it on the, don't put it on the consent. I can see it. So the public can see it.
Yeah, Joe, there are bid tabs for every project that you'll see.
I mean, I'd like to see the numbers when we're up here discussing it.
You're absolutely correct. Because we were so tight this year, I think we finished this up maybe Monday or Tuesday with the flooring. So we will have that over Doug's memo and notes over to you tomorrow, so you guys have a chance to review. And we'll definitely make sure that everything's uploaded for non-consent.
Mr. Hickey?
Can it also be loaded up somewhere where the public can see these numbers as well?
Yeah, it'll be on the
agenda.
The agenda for the board meeting on by Tuesday at midnight before the board meeting.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like Mr. Hidalgo was saying, usually when we come to these things, you know, it's all right up there, what it was spec'd at, what it was bid at, how close we came to the numbers. You know, there's probably people that are home that want to see those numbers as well, you know, so I'm hoping that they get a view before, you know, in case they would like to weigh in on next Thursday.
And the results are always posted on our website.
Yeah, that's a very good point. If you go to our website and go to the top and it says, I think it's public resources, and go to bids, all of this, and I'll make sure that we get it posted, all of this will be posted under the bid results, so it's all public, everybody can see it. Again, we literally just opened these bids last Thursday, so Doug has worked his butt off to get all this so that we could bring it tonight. So I'll make sure that I get all of those documents over to Ashley to have her upload them. I'm committing her time, so I don't want to commit her time, but I know she's leaving it a little bit early tomorrow, but either Friday or by Monday, they'll be uploaded to the website.
Super, thank you.
We post all the results too at CHA, so everybody's aware that
Okay.
we go there too.
Great. Any other questions?
Upcoming agenda items, again, facilities, master plan study, district-wide HVAC air filters. The reason why you guys haven't seen this or the wood floor refinishing yet, I'm working with my entire crew to make sure that the filters are correct, so we're not over-ordering filters. This has been a very big challenge, but we're getting closer. And then the same with the wood floors. Fuel oil and gasoline supply bid. We actually opened those bids today. And then propane supply, and then the custodial services RFP as well.
What are the custodial services do? Sorry,
But you are totally putting me on the spot.
sorry, don't worry.
I don't know off the top of my head. It's soon, because questions were due by 2 o'clock yesterday, and the final,
We bring that to the board in April.
yes, April.
Well, thank you, Doug and Ms. Binda, because I know when we met on the 26th for our pre-meeting, you had a stack of, literally, it was like this much that she was like trying to bring in of the bids. So you worked very hard to get that done.
Thank you for your help.
Yes.
Yeah, and I just wanted to repeat what was said earlier, that we're a little bit behind the 8 ball, a little behind literally time-wise, because we put out the consulting engineer contract for review and bid. So that's one of the reasons why we're behind. But all this information will be up on the website in time for next week's meeting.
Absolutely. Okay, so the next portion of this is gonna be kind of a hybrid between me, David Schrader, and Doug, to kind of go through all of the spreadsheets that you have in front of you, and we also have one feasible, what did we call it? Sorry, I'm drawing a blank. One feasible approach, thank you. So the first items to discuss are the couple master plan discussion points are the Chancellor Center renovation costs and grade band adjustments costs. So the first item is the Chancellor Center renovation costs. So Doug, if you want to kick that off and start the conversation there.
Yes. I'll start it, David, feel free to go. On the Chancellor Center, I think there was definitely some questions last time we met, what the costs are and why are there different numbers? So the first number.
us, are we? Page 2. Page 2?
District master list.
It's on the district master list document, and it's page 2, right around the middle.
Yep.
So the fully renovate Chancellor Center, including other issues, is from the capital plan that we had prepared. There's a number, if you were to fully renovate, at $250 a square foot times the square footage of the building, what would it cost to fully renovate Chancellor Center. So that number is the 11,433,500. However, we also said there are issues that need to be pulled out of the plan and added to that to perform an all-encompassing project here that addresses the water infiltration and some of the things you have happening outside. So in order to accomplish that, in addition to the total renovations that's based on the inside work, there's another laundry list of things, and I'll just go through this list to show you how we get to the 15,638,480. And these are all from the capital improvement plan, the book that you guys have. And what I did is, and I can get a copy of this to Jess later, is I listed the actual item numbers from the plan on here, so you can relate them back to the plan itself if you want to go back and look at these. But there's spalling elevated concrete steps at the entrance to the building that need to be repaired. The steps that are out front from the underside, there was temporary support put in because we were going to do that work after we took all of the mechanical systems out from around it, because getting to it with all the ductwork that's down there is a real challenge. So we said, all right, when we do the HVAC project here, we'll do that work. So that is a number that's included in the overall 15,638. So it's taking care of that. That's a $39,000 item to get under there to do that work. Replacing the concrete stairways and areaways at the 4 locations around the building is included. That's a $546,000 item from the plan. Add emergency generation, transfer switch, and finding a place on the site to put that on the site is a $520,000 issue that, in addition to doing the work in here, adding that generation system is also included as part of the work, which you're likely going to need when we renovate the building. Add the foundation drainage around this front end of the building. So that's where we got to take out roadways, have an angle of repose, get to the bottom of the wall and do any kind of stone repairs, and then put a drainage matrix system around here with piping, and then tie it into some sort of discharge system, whether we find a way to drain it by gravity to the bottom end of the site or have to pump it and discharge it at the upper end of the site. That's a $1,560,000 item that's included as additional items. There's a couple doors that need to be replaced. That was a $13,000 item. Concrete sidewalk and curb repairs is a $195,000 item. We're going to be replacing a good bit of the curbs and sidewalks after you do the work that you have to do to get the water barrier, all the water barrier and stuff in. So that's included as well. There's a stone repointing allowance of $146,000 that we would take care of any stone repointing as you're repointing the walls below to address that. Any of the work that would be needed at that time is included for an allowance in here as part of that interior work package. There's also some additional kind of plaster soffit ceiling work around the building that I think is greater than just doing renovations. So that is work that would need to be addressed, and that's a $260,000 allowance item. Replace the site lights. The site lights, we'd also do the paving around the building, because as we disrupt all the paving around the outside, that's just going to naturally follow through to take care of the rest of the paving, and at the same time, you're going to do the site lights with that, and that's a $208,000 line item. There are some windows still left in the building. Some are steel framed that are in need of replacement, and some are still wood divided light along the lowest level at the back of the building. Those are included in here. There's a $16,000 item and an $11,000 or $12,000 item. And then performing some of the painting of the exterior components on the building. Again, if you're fully renovating this and you're doing some of this other work, as part of that, this includes going back. There's some wood components on the exterior that need to be replaced. There's a $390,000 item in the book to take care of replacing some of the wood trim around the building that's dry rotted and tired, and doing some painting and taking care of it. By the time you do the work here, you're going to be due to take care of that. The parking lot maintenance, as I mentioned, is in here, $195,000, and then the last thing is a $100,000 item to take care of a lot of the perimeter fencing and things that would tie into, there's a little retaining wall that kind of fell over at this end of the site, there's some other tired fencing and some other work that would all be done before you repave. So that is how it gets from the $250 per square foot times the 35,000 square feet to do the inside, plus these items from the plan because they're incidental to the water infiltration and some of that other work to get to the $15,638,480. That's the explanation on the first one.
Doug, each have a question. Go ahead, Tony.
So you had said that with the 250 square feet, that was 11 million. And the fixed issues with Chancellor, which is the next item on there, is 7.7 million. How does that get to 15,638 then?
So that's a different, so the first number is, there's the capital plan where we identify just the needs that need to be addressed to bring the building kind of back up to, functioning the way you want it to function. So the 7.6 million are the items we identified in the plan. If you look at the page for Chancellor Center, that's taking care of the water infiltration. That's just making the building essentially warm, safe, and dry, taking care of some of the concrete, taking care of fixing the step. I think there's mechanical, the HVAC system. That's coming in here and doing those select items. That's not coming in and doing total renovations. It's two separate things. So that's when you look at that in the plan and say, okay, what is the cost if we were to just take care of the items that were identified during the study versus total renovations, and what's that percentage, and which one should we consider doing? That's the difference between these two numbers.
So fixed issues with Chancellor,
It's
are
not,
you saying that it wouldn't be the same if it was done as part of a renovation?
if you were gonna do total renovations plus these items, then you're gonna address everything that needs to be done, which if you're gonna come in here and do a total renovation, you're gonna wanna do all of these items as well. Total renovations is coming in and touching every wall, touching all the floors, touching all new infrastructure. You're looking at new floors, new paint, hardware. You're touching the entire building and all the spaces. The other is just touching the items identified as being problematic. You might be doing a floor repair here. You might repair some plaster that's problematic. That doesn't mean all the plaster is being repaired. You're not painting all the plaster. You're just fixing the areas that are identified in the plan.
So I'm not trying to be obtuse, I'm just.
That's okay.
If the board were to opt to fully do option one, fully renovate Chancellor, for 15,638,000, at the end of that project, would there be a new HVAC system and the water infiltration taken care of at that price?
Yes.
And if we just did water infiltration and HVAC and some of those other things that you talked about, that would be 7,633,000.
Right.
Thank you.
Doug, if we did the $15.6 million project, would that eliminate any kind of cost for the next 20 years for the building?
No.
Say that louder. Please.
No, I mean, any building that you construct is going to require ongoing maintenance, but this building even more so than others because of the historic nature of the building, right? The walls in this building are constructed as massive stone walls. They're not necessarily reinforced walls the way we would construct walls today. So we're going to have ongoing, work to continue to, even the walls that we repoint at some point are going to need to be repointed again, right? It's just the nature of a building like this. The wood trim is wood trim. It's not aluminum wrapped, pressure treated lumber like you have in a new home. It's actually, exposed wood trim to the elements that needs to be primed and painted and, stripped, primed and painted, every 10 years. So, it's just things that you have to do. So you're going to have those ongoing issues.
Ms. Stone?
Yeah, so how long do you, I have a few questions. How long do you believe that warm, safe, and dry cost will get us? How long Get us.
every component has a different life cycle,
Yeah.
right? You know, I mean, is it gonna be 15 years, you know? You're gonna have to do things in between, like even if, to maintain warm, safe, and dry, you're gonna have to continue to put money into it to keep it warm, safe, and dry. You know, when you build like the new Newtown Middle School, or a new building, or renovate a building, it's different when you're putting in the aluminum window systems and sealants and caulks that are designed to last, you know, 10 years and 15 years, and roofs that are 30-year roof systems. This building has some minimally pitched roof systems on it. There's a lot of equipment on this roof. There's a lot of work to try to keep the water out. We had water infiltration in here through the equipment in the past, but we have to continue to maintain the issues with that. Like, everything has its own life.
Doug just teed up something real quick. I just, while he's talking about this, I do want to show the next slide. And this is from last night.
But I didn't know about this. So, is that in the lowest level?
Ooh,
That's
Wait,
sealed.
where is that?
where is that?
Sealed?
That's in the basement.
That's
Right.
not supposed to happen.
That's on the inside of
That's
the window?
No, that's nowhere near a window.
Oh.
So if you go downstairs in the basement, there's a long hallway that is, it's an interior wall. So what's happening is that water is sheeting off of the staff entrance and making its way down into the basement. So there was some dripping, and as soon as I saw the dripping, I popped the ceiling tile because I knew it was just holding water. We do have dehumidifiers down there today to dry out the space. The ceiling tile has been removed, but that's just one storm. Every time we get rain, not every time we get heavier rains, this continues to happen. And again, that was only a 6-second clip. I could have stayed here all night and taken video of it all night long. But I put some trash cans and cleaned up the water as best as possible until we got the dehumidifier here this morning. But, Doug just kind of teed up that video. I didn't mean to stop you from asking questions, but I wanted to make sure we saw that video as he talked about it. And that was not intentional. That was not
No, I
planned.
didn't know I was doing it.
The second question I had was on the notes, which is not up there, but we have notes on ours next to this that says that these numbers exclude site costs, so I don't know what that means. It had a footnote number 7, and if you go back and look at number 7, it says excludes site costs.
Yeah, I think that's a note that we've carried for a lot of these projects, but since we've kind of clarified what is supposed to be here, when we talk about fully renovate Chancellor Center, including those issues, all of those site costs that I mentioned would be included.
They would be included.
They would be included
Okay.
under that scenario, under the top one. Obviously, under fixed issues with Chancellor Center, only fixing the issues, not
Right.
every site cost would be addressed.
I gotcha. And my last question is, I understand that to do any of this work, administration has to move out of this building.
Yeah, I would say that's true.
Okay, then if that's the case, how long would administration have to be somewhere else for either the full renovation versus the other? So I'm asking how long the project
Let me
is.
say this, I really should say this, if you start to look at all these numbers, right, these are order of magnitude numbers. I'm doing my best to kind of give you where we are. So with any project, and David and Michael know this well, you sit with an owner and you gather the program and you understand exactly what wants to happen. And then we can begin to identify more accurate numbers as we start to develop any one of these many order of magnitude numbers. So I'm doing my best to try to give you guys about where we are. You know, if the wants in here to do more dividing of spaces and add more offices and do, those costs could obviously go up.
Right.
But as far as timing, I think if you're going to do, the fix issues thing, it's probably, a 6-month thing, because you're gonna have HVAC replacement and repairing some things around the building. If you're gonna fully renovate this building, it's gonna be at least a year that you're gonna be out of the building while the building's being renovated.
And that's once you start the project, not
Right.
any inspections or,
No, that would be once we have a
Building permits
contractor on
and all
board
that.
and the board approves it and you know you're ready to go, then we'd say, okay, now we gotta make sure because the building's gonna wanna be emptied of everything for a contractor to do what they have to do. So it means not just moving the staff, but it means removing everything that's in this building as well. Because contractors won't be able to work on
Either
it.
way, it's a full school year.
It's a full year.
So, yeah,
minimum.
it's gonna be like a full school year. You wouldn't move them out and move them.
Right, parents will be going to some other location
Yeah.
for the services you guys provide.
Mr. Tate.
And then me. No, all right, I'll go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. I think I understand pretty clearly what you're describing in terms of the 7.6 million and the 15.6 million. I mean, that's the $16 million figure that we've been using for several years. And I just, and I recall from prior conversations going back several years that you explained that these high-maintenance wood windows cannot be replaced because of the historical nature with a lower maintenance aluminum, and that's true of a lot of features of this building. One quick question and then a bigger one. We do have people working in the basement, right?
Me.
Yeah.
Yes, we
Taking
do.
photos.
Yes, we do. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14 people.
Yeah, I mean, I won't comment on it, but the bigger question, Mr. Taylor, the 16 million figure for total renovation, does that include reconfiguring walls and making other structural changes to optimize the building's layout and facilities for the uses that we expect? I mean,
So now this is this order of magnitude thing.
I know, and I think I know the answer.
When you're
but,
saying structural changes and major partition, relocations, and no, I would say the 250 is likely gonna, what would happen is if we prepared a budget based on an actual project, is there would be areas of the building that might be $250 a square foot, then there could be areas of the building that are $400 a square foot. It would vary dependent, what are we doing at some of those areas? If you're gonna come in here and generally keep it in the configuration that it is and maybe do some minor partition work, that would be in the 250. If you're gonna do significant, take an 1800s wall out between these two buildings and create something larger, and then there's gonna be, costs we'd have to identify for those specific tasks to tell you what the cost impact is of some of those requested changes. Because it doesn't just happen here, that there's things happening above and below, so it's gonna affect structure at multiple places. So we'd have to look at what that means, and so.
Yeah, thanks, that's what I thought.
Mr. Seki.
Yeah, good, thank you. The last time that you were here, I can't remember, and I looked at my notes and I don't have it, but I thought I remembered that there was something being double counted, and I thought it was HVAC, was included both in the 250 per square foot and included in the, additional, number. So did that come out, or am I missing?
We're not.
Nothing is being double counted. And then I have another question for Mr. Rapp. Where are we on the grants? Is there any progress on that for this building? We don't know anything. Do we know when we'll know?
be honest with you, no. We're waiting for, like I said, the grants that we've talked about, you know, we're looking and waiting to hear from the congressperson as far as the information for him, so that was the big one.
Right, that was the big one.
Mr. Roosevelt?
Thank you. Doug, looking at these two numbers, the 7.6 and the 15.6, just briefly, the top two options, both of them have the inclusion of keeping the water out of the building, from the foundations to the peak, the ridge of the roof.
Yes.
Okay. When we're talking about keeping the water or removing a lot of the driveways and the sidewalks around, getting down to the footings and addressing the foundation wall, does that also include waterproofing and potential for underpinning?
So I definitely thought about the waterproofing. I don't know what we'll find when we open it up. If we find soft spots and it looks like there's need for underpinning or something more substantial, you know, it might not be
Okay,
part of that. It's just hard to know.
that would be in the contingency then?
It would have to be at that point.
Okay. And what sort of a magnitude could that be to this project cost if you had to do underpinning?
It would really depend on what those findings are, right? If you had to put in.
So, yeah, I mean, without going into it too deep, this is effectively where the contractor goes about 2 to 4 feet at a time and addresses the structural stability of that and then moves on and so on and so forth as needed.
They construct like mini columns essentially to support the load above if there's an issue where they find. So if you go down, as Mike's suggesting, and you open it up and you're down at that level of the floor, but you're outside, and because water has been down there, that we find that the soils are still soft at the level of the foundation, which the foundation here isn't like a foundation that you would have at home. It's likely this big width of wall that just continues down to a point where they started on soil somewhere.
And since it's stone on the exterior, we would expect to have stone down that foundation wall as well.
I agree.
And any sort of concrete or masonry that we see on the inside is just that, probably just on the inside.
You can see the plaster on the inside is challenged, right? Because the salts are coming through, the water's coming through, and the plaster has failed in many areas, and you can see that it is stone behind the plaster. So you know it's just a mass of stone.
And above, you mentioned repointing, which is where you put the grout in around all the stones and make sure that the water sheds down as it's supposed to instead of coming through. But
Correct.
some of it does wick through. So that is to be expected. I think you mentioned also on the foundation, you pull it away and repoint down below. So just so everybody's clear, right, that means that below the ground, there's a series of rocks that are stacked on top of each other, much like the facade of the
Much like you see
building.
above.
Right, just not probably as pretty. They're probably the reject rocks that nobody's gonna look at, right? So that's moving around a lot and that water coming through. So is the idea of underpinning could be substantial as far as a cost implication.
If you were to find,
Right.
a significant amount of challenged foundations, I would say yes, right? I mean, I don't know that from the inside that we saw any significant cracking or anything that's telling us that that's a problem.
Okay.
So there's not a lot of allowance in there for that because there's nothing on the inside that's suggesting that there's differential movement or anything like that. But it is a massive stone wall, so until you get down there and you see the soil, you really won't.
And this building was constructed in the mid to late 1800s. So nobody's really seen that for a long time.
Only one guy has seen it.
That person's dead.
And then he finished and covered it back up. And this includes a drainage matrix system that I would suggest putting on that wall. So you would go down and repair the wall.
Yeah.
And then it's like a black, it's a dimpled plastic kind of material with a fabric on it that allows water to run around those down to the bottom. And then you wrap it in stone and a pipe. So the water hits it, it runs rapidly down, gets in that pipe, and then gets out of here quickly. But the question is, where does it go?
Right.
because there is no storm drainage on any of these public streets. It's just water discharging onto a street. So we may have to capture it with an underground stormwater management system at the bottom of the site where it's collected in chambers and then discharged slowly onto the street or through infiltration.
Right, but then as far as we come up ground and now we're on the inside of the building, so both of these numbers deal with roofing issues, deal with siding issues, deal with foundational issues, also deal with HVAC issues, does it deal with plumbing or electrical issues? Both of them.
The top one does, because that's all new mechanical, electrical, plumbing. The 7.6 does not replace all the lights and things like that.
Okay, so then largely everything that we see in the buildings today would likely remain after the 7.6 project is completed. But
Right,
we
if you
just
go in
don't
your,
have the
if you
water
go in your
issues
book,
like Jess showed.
the CIP book,
Yeah.
and look at Chancellor Center, basically everything that's on that page is the 7.6.
Okay, do we have a page that represents the 15.6?
I'm going to give to Jess, and I can send her this tomorrow, the document that I prepared. So
Great.
that has the total renovation cost on the top, and then each one of these numbers is the number from the book
Wonderful.
of what would need to be tied into this, that's kind of sistered into that bigger project.
I think that is going to be a very helpful comparison for this board to look at, looking at those 2 pages that you talked about and now illuminating with these numbers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Hickey and then Ms. Polly.
Yeah, I have some, I'm just gonna ask the one question about Chancellor as it relates to this right now. I have a lot of other different thoughts that I'll weigh in on later, I guess, as it relates to the overall plan, but regardless of whether we did, and this question, I'm not even sure if you can answer it. No matter what, if we did the 7 million or the 16 million, what's the value? I think we had this building appraised a little while ago and it was roughly $1 million. Is that correct, Tony?
A little less than $1 million.
It was a 900,000.
Okay. If we put $14 million into this building, what would we get on our return on this investment if we were to try, and I'm not saying that, right, 1, 2, if we did all this $14 million worth of work and tried to sell the building the next day, what would the value be? Would it still be $1 million?
No, it would be, sorry, I'm trying to get to it.
Isn't that true for like any school or school building? Like, we're not gonna sell North for, $150 million either.
My question is, what is the value, if we're gonna put $14 million into it, what are we getting out of it? I mean, I know there's other things that we're getting out of it, the historical building, the I get that. I'm just asking it strictly from a financial.
Sure, I couldn't, I don't, assess, in that regard, but I would say if someone's looking for a building of this nature and it's for sale with water infiltration versus for sale with those things corrected, I'm sure it's more attractive corrected than it is problematic, unless someone's looking for some sort of deal that they want to turn it around and do something, with. And I don't even know what the uses of this building could be based upon the borough's, decisions on how they would zone this, so.
Just a quick one.
Ms. Polly wanted to go.
When he said 1 million,
Okay.
did that include the land?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you done with your question?
That was it?
Ms. Polly?
Are we waiting for 20?
No, I'm just fine.
So I have a couple of questions. I understand all the issues, or at least I think I understand about this building. First, can you go over some of the other options that you have listed there, Doug, and tell us how you came up with these numbers?
You want to go over the rest of these, David?
Yeah,
I mean, converting, we have those.
Yeah,
numbers, so-
I think it probably helps to understand what the two worksheets are as a starting point,
Very good point.
okay?
Thank you, David.
Just quickly introducing Jennifer Grafton Bannister behind me, who's going to be a partner in crime in some of these types of efforts. You'll remember back in January, we presented a chart that was a yellow chart that had all kinds of different solutions for the various challenges and discussion points that you were going to have. That has become the district master list. So this is the one that was presented to you last month. It's expanded because since that point in time, we've discussed some other solutions to each of these as well. So it's growing. I hope it shrinks someday. Just say that. And you'll remember that the way that that was organized was for each of the solutions that we were talking about, we would come up with an approximate number of students that needed to be handled by the building, multiplied by a square footage, and then where you were doing renovation costs, you used Doug's numbers that were either $250 a square foot, or where you were doing more significant structural renovation like you were just talking about here, $350 a square foot. So those were the renovation numbers that we utilized, again, all to get an order of magnitude solution to this. Where you came up with areas where you had to add or build new. If you built new, a new building from ground up was $450 a square foot, plus whatever the site costs we anticipated were. Where you were adding, which is a little more surgical on a project, then we were using $600 a square foot, again, for an order of magnitude. So that's where the district master list came from. In the month succeeding or coming after the last meeting, there were discussions between administration and ourselves for the document that says district option analysis. And in that, what the team was trying to come up with, maintaining the overall, the first category, maintaining the overall list of renovation projects that still have to occur in the district. So if you remember, we discussed that Newtown Welsh Elementary had not yet gone through the renovations that the balance of the elementaries had, so those are on that list. And as well as Doug went through his original list, you had High School North and South. Since that time, there had been a discussion about what happens if you add your administration to the High School North project if you were to do that. So that now shows up as one of the potential solutions under renovation projects. The two options, the grade band adjustment or the current grade bands, were two solutions that you'll remember were kind of evolutions of the last discussion we had. So I'm actually going to hit option 2 first because that's the simpler one for me to describe. And we'll get to this administration in a second.
Yeah,
After we go through the water.
that's a long answer.
I know it's a long answer to your question.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I just thought since you have it in front of you, this might help you to understand where the documents come from. So these are two options that are potentials for you, and these were the discussions that you had centering around what would happen if you did K-5 versus K-6 in the district. So the K-6, you'll remember, the discussion there was renovating Newtown L, and at that time, after that, I should say, we talked about picking up overcrowding across the board in the K-6 model. So the K-6 model, if you go back to the presentation that was done in January, shows that you've actually in 10 years got crowding issues at Welsh, Solfainstone, and Wrightstown. And Wrightstown is our continued challenge, and that's the discussion that we'll have when we go back up to option 1. But there you're adding just enough students to cover the classrooms that are missing, and what I'm looking at it on my screen, Welsh, Solfainstone, and Wrightstown, to the tune of about 150 students worth of, 275 students worth of capacity that you need. So that's what's generating the addition to Newtown there to accommodate that growth or that need. And then you'll all remember that we talked about the missing number of seats for the 7-8 model if you build yourself out to the 20, 34, and 35 was 150 students. I'm coming back to administration in a second. The option one was looking at adjusting you to a K-5 model. And in that case, you are adding 2 large additions to the middle schools, and that's 500 students each. You're adding a grade band of about 1,000 students to pull 6th grade out of the middle and put them in the elementary, or vice versa. Put them in the middle schools. So that does bring you over to administration. I'm going to skip the other feasible option on the, or one feasible approach on the second page. So if you go down to the administration, the renovating chancellor is Doug's first number. That was the one that he just went through with you. The second one is the 7.6 that we just went through. Richboro Middle School Administration Center was using the $350 a square foot times the square footage that you needed for 35,000 square feet of Chancellor Center space. So that's what that one was. There was also the discussion of taking 35,000 square feet of Wrightstown and converting that to the administrative center. The balance of the building would just be used for probably community use or some other educational functions that you folks might have. So this is only reflecting 35,000 square feet of that. And because the building is recently renovated, you've got systems in place that are good. So what you would be doing there is putting possibly additional partitions in to make your office spaces and so on, probably some redistribution of HVAC with ductwork and so on. So because of that, just to do a comparison, Richboro Middle is in the condition it's in, so you would have to do a wholesale renovation of that to accommodate the 35,000 feet. Wrightstown has all of the systems relatively new, so you're doing less renovation in that building in terms of cost. That's why that's showing up as less for the same square footage.
Then the footnote we added to Wrightstown is just this, it's not centrally located. So that was just a new footnote that we added.
And the last three, what these were the various renovations or additions that you might do around the district. And this actually stretches beyond the 3 that you have here. But if you renovated or built a new north, you're essentially adding 35,000 square feet of new construction to north, either new or renovated, for the administration. So you're seeing the dollar value of 21 million, pardon me, it's another era. And then the same for the 6th grade center. You remember we looked at the 6th grade center on several possible sites, and the same thing with the new middle school. So that's where those come from, 35,000 square feet times $450 a foot plus some site costs.
So 35,000 times 350?
No, 450.
450.
450, if I said that wrong, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yep.
And then about 6 million for like the site plans?
750,000 per site.
Okay.
And then that totals 16.5 million on your worksheets for construction costs. And what we've done to try to show you total project costs is add 30% for soft costs to each of those, which is furniture, equipment, technology, fees, permitting costs, all the things that go along with a construction project. And that gets you to the 20.
So do we need 35,000 square feet for administration, or we can manage with less, or we need more? Is 35 the right number?
That's what this building is, 35,000, and even that's, we are tight in some areas. We also have space that we're not able to use that.
Were you able to get estimates if we go out to lease buildings in the area?
I did, so I've only gotten one realtor that's gotten back to me. His name is Ray Jones. He's given me 3 options for actual properties within the district. I'm not gonna say what they are, but I'll give you the amounts. One is $855,000 per year. One is $637,000 per year, and one is $638,000 per year. So the square footage of the first one, that's 855,000, is 30,000 square feet. The one that's 637,000 is 26,000 square feet. And the 29,000 square feet is 638,000. That would be, in just going through square footage, the first property that I mentioned is 2850 per square foot. The second property is 2450 per square foot, and the third property is $22 per square foot.
Okay, but, so,
Did they say how long you had to have a lease for?
well, I know the lease cannot be for a year, you have to be
Not usually.
at least 5 years, so if we, the option, if we're looking to renovate this building and move somewhere, you could not just move anywhere other than Richard Living, that's my understanding.
Yeah.
And to have the lease, it has to be at least 5 years, otherwise nobody's gonna really give you a lease, and I'm sure you can negotiate the price, but what you mentioned is less than 35,000, right?
Yes.
So what you're saying is maybe hard to find the right space?
It would be hard to find the right space. There's, one of the options gives, there's an option, I don't have a price for an additional 10,000 square foot auditorium area, which I would imagine would be your boardroom. Which, you know, obviously the boardroom's counted as part of,
Right.
as part of the square footage of this building. And, you know, so when you talk about, I'm gonna make it clear that I'm not advocating for any solution. Okay, I'm just giving you the facts as they exist. That, you know, would maybe mean that we do the monthly board meetings, the business meetings at middle schools or the high schools, or, you know, that, and I'm just saying that might, if depending on the square footage, if you rent it. I would also say that these are the prices that they're on the market at. I don't think we would be satisfied walking into anywhere saying, and I'm just telling you what we would do, is there would be negotiation,
Right.
and there are certain places that we have better leverage than other places. So, I'm just giving you the facts.
I mean, it would be good if you could get more options, because this is, I'm not advocating for one versus the other, but we need to know what our options are and how much they're gonna
Yeah.
cost. So if you can find maybe a
Well-
building that you think is suitable, and then kind of like figure out the price for leases.
He said there are a few more spots he's looking at. The next step he would recommend is if you wanted more information on these, that we would actually go out and look at the places and,
Right.
you know, see what the options are. So, you know, if that's the board, if that's something the board wants us to do, we can do that. If not, we don't.
I think we would need to do that to find out where we stand for leasing, because even if I mean, I'm not saying renovating, but if that was an option, we still have to put you somewhere. We still have to have that cost.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, some of this affects other matters going on in the district, but I would say that there might be places that we could go that wouldn't have to be a 5-year deal.
But you want to solve the administration issue, right? You don't.
Right, well, no, I'm just saying, if
Don't
you're
want a
if you're looking
1 year or
at
2 year
some of these
solution.
places for a 1 year,
Right.
1 year place while this building is being renovated, there are ways to get less than a 5-year, to get a 1-year lease if we wanted it.
If you don't have to make any changes to the building.
Right, right, exactly.
If you just go in as is, maybe for a little bit, but my experience is that if you do want to change the building the way you want it to, it's going to take time, and they're going to want a long-term lease. And the prices in the area is about $25 per square foot. You can negotiate down, or if it's a fancy building, you can go higher. But I would say 25 per square foot is a very good price.
Or would you, sorry for interrupting, but would you consider just using Richboro?
That would be a, you know, for a while.
You own it, right?
Yeah, I mean.
You have to rent it, you know, renting a chiller is probably less expensive than paying a lease for somebody.
No.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Or we put a, you know, an inexpensive chiller in the building, you know.
Yeah, I thought we were at 350 for 3 months or something like that.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Tate?
I thought it was 17,000 a month.
Okay.
But
Yeah, that brings me to my question. I don't want to take the presentation off track, but there's a lot of people here interested in Chancellor, and I think we might as well have a thorough discussion at this point. Is it feasible, one of the options on here is renovating Richboro Middle School Administrative Center. The bones, as you call them, Mr. Taylor, are the bones of Richboro Middle School sufficient to accommodate a renovation?
Some of the bones are. I think when we've looked at this before, there's a thought that some of this building could be salvaged and some of it would be removed. And you would, you know, use that piece that we would salvage for the Chancellor Center piece.
Okay. Thanks.
Did we ever hear back from Newtown Borough about their interest, or have we had any collaboration with them at all?
The last communication, which was just last week, I got from Newtown Borough, was to keep them apprised of any decisions or where we might be, you know, what we're considering regarding the building. So I have not had any.
So when we talked about the grants, as Ms. Oseki said, and we said that the congressman and the representative had said about grants, is it that it really has to be municipal?
When we met with some congressmen that.
Yeah.
We talked about, you know, when we talked about congressional earmarks was the most amount of money that we would be able to get for renovation for this building. And part of that discussion was that a borough would have a better chance of obtaining the funding than a school district. Those are.
Borough would have better
Good job.
access to getting
Yes.
funding.
And also some of the
Last
other.
night I spent some time trying to go through of understanding, you know, like what's out there and what do we have, what programs, like there's Department of Community Economic Development in Pennsylvania, and there's tons of, I mean, the amounts are like $22 million, like there's just an enormous amount, and there's just one after another of all these different things, and their focus is basically to make sure that the local governments are used to fund activities and make sure the communities are made better. There's also the Bucks County, if we maybe can go to our Bucks County government too, because they've got a 2040 initiative, and that's improving all of their infrastructures as well as their buildings.
So where we run into a lot of issues with those is that most of them are for municipalities. School districts don't always qualify. Now, we'll double check
Okay.
with what our past experience has been, that school districts didn't qualify for it, because particularly for an administration building.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't serve kids. So that's where, again, we'll look at these ones that you're
Okay.
talking about again,
Yeah.
or this time, but most of them we just didn't qualify for them.
Okay.
But
And then
we'll check those ones
with
out.
the Newtown Borough, if there is an interest, that maybe they would be willing, if they have the access, if they look at this building and it's a historical building, we want to make sure we do something very good with this building and keep it and save it. And if it can go to Newtown Borough, not saying that, I'm just throwing it out there because we don't know that. And they have the ability to get that money and those grants. It might be advantageous for them. Mr. Hickey?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just gonna say. Have you talked to the township about their interest in owning this building? Because one of the possibilities that we could actually do, I mean, another thought is, if, you know, like I said, let them own the building. I mean, there seems to be a lot of interest in the community for keeping this building. So if, you know, if the township wanted it, I would be agreeable to, I mean, it was given to the district. I would be agreeable to possibly just giving it back to the township. I mean, and if we had to, we could actually rent the building from the township if we had needed it for certain things. And then the other thing I just talked about, and I'll raise it now, it's just like I said, there seems to be a lot of interest in keeping this building as it relates to funding. You know, is there any appetite for fundraising efforts to try to get money for this? You know, it's one thing if the district would pony up, say, I'll say $5 million, I'm just throwing a figure out, and let, you know, come up with some group that would be willing to do fundraising to keep this building alive and see what kind of money they can get. I mean, I know we've done fundraising for other things, and, you know, I mean, just as a possibility, like I said, but I would like to know if the township has any appetite for being the owner of this facility.
In discussions with the borough, the warm, safe, and dry costs is more than the borough's budget, annual budget. So that's an issue for the borough, for the borough taking it over. If I'm sure it would be a lot easier if those issues didn't exist for them to take it over. But saying that, as we discussed before, they have a better chance of getting money from the federal government for this building than we do, just by the nature of our business. You know, a lot of those grants that we see, and I know this sounds backwards, but and I think this is how it was explained to us. They want to see community use, and although this building is used for the community, we don't, you know, we're not putting kids in the school, kids in this building. But I'm just repeating things that we discussed when we talked to the different organizations. So, and then we did discuss before the appraisal, and you have to bear with me on this because it's a little bit confusing. So when they look at the appraisal, they do a calculation and they figure out different uses or sales of the building. And the best sale of the building, I'm not advocating for this, so I just want to make it clear, this was in the appraisal, was sell it to someone who would turn it into condominiums. That would be worth $890,000. And I think that throws out all the stuff of, you know, they would be redoing the entire building and do whatever they would have to do that. That would be $890,000. Currently, that's the best use of the building, or most lucrative. Not that we're selling the building. The second option is actually if it were to be taken over by an office or a not-for-profit, it would be worth $1,452,360 if there were no issues, warm, safe, and dry issues that exist. So an appraisal with the warm, safe, and dry, the appraiser said warm, safe, and dry is $2.9 million, which is a negative appraisal of $1.5 million.
For later.
Okay. So those were the, and again, so if now we're saying it's $7 million to make it warm, safe, and dry, the appraisal would actually be a negative $5 million. So just stating what was in the appraisal, so everyone's clear that the first thing was selling for condominiums, $890,000. If there were no warm, safe, and dry issues, selling for an office or not-for-profit would be $1.452 million. So I just wanted to give you an answer on that question from before.
That's one more question.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Tate.
Just as we're going through all this, just from a 35,000 foot view, as we're talking about buildings and how much they're gonna, what is the comfortable figure that you think that the district could borrow for, like I said, we're gonna have to kind of pick and choose here and what we're gonna do, so it would be nice to know what dollar figure we are operating under, trying to be fiscally responsible to the taxpayers of the district, because I don't wanna see, you know, I read in the paper that there's a neighboring district that's talking about raising their taxes this year, largely due to the facility concerns, and they're gonna be looking to raise their taxes over 5%. So there's a figure that I would think that you're comfortable with saying that we could safely borrow to do some of these projects. Would you care to share what that number is as we go through?
I shared it last month.
Yeah, 82.
I just wanna make sure again, so we know.
Yeah, I mean, that's without raising taxes for debt service. You could borrow, what was it,
84 or something?
Okay, right, so as I said, this is item one out of an $84 million ask. And here we're asking anywhere from 7 to 16 million out of that figure, possibly. So I just wanna make sure as we're going through the list, that I understand where I wanna place those dollars.
And I just remind you again that there are certain, part of that whole thing, there are certain construction musts that directly affect students. And I'm not saying this in relation to this building, I'm just saying this in relation to the whole plan. There's certain construction musts that directly affect students that need to be done, okay? And some of those are eventually gonna necessitate raising our debt service. I don't think there's a way that we can not do that. You know, my job is to be honest with you and to tell you what's coming. That's what's coming. There's gonna have to be some tax increases to do those things. I've recommended, and I recommended last year, that we do that in a slower manner, where we add to our debt service by year, which gives us more money to put away to cover debt service in certain years, and so that we don't end up in a year where we're looking at raising taxes 5% because we have to get over and we're going out to referendum. I don't think we want to do that, but if we're gradually raising it as part of our budget every year, in order to cover, to have enough borrowing power when we're ready to do those projects. But I don't think we can get away with not doing that. We're looking at 80 million right now. You know, we're looking at projects that have to be done that are, you know, 40 million, 120 million. So.
Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong,
There are other options that we have coming up. We have some other debt, more debt that falls off in 4 years. So that increases our borrowing power. We have money in our debt service fund that we could use to pay for debt service until other debt drops off. And every time that we raise taxes, every time we raise the debt service, we're putting more money away. But I don't see.
You answered my question.
Okay.
I'm good.
Mr. Tate?
yeah, I think you've done a really good job of mapping this out over the past few months. I mean, you shared with us previously that $82 million current borrowing capacity for capital projects. It's pretty obvious when you look at the list, renovating north, renovating south, renovating elementary schools, that 82 million comes nowhere close to meeting our needs. And obviously the only solution is going to be taxes. I just wanted to point out that you know, whatever we do for providing an administrative facility is going to cost, let's see, if we do it by renovating the current Richboro Middle School we're talking 21 million. If we talk about converting Wrightstown, that's 16 million. So no matter what, we're looking, adding it to Council Rock North, when renovating or constructing news, 21 million. So no matter what, we're gonna be spending a lot of money to provide a administrative facility, whether it's here or anywhere else, except for leasing. But I view leasing as a bridge, even if it's a bridge for 5 years or 8 years until we get some of this other stuff sorted out. You know, we do have to provide an administrative center, and I think, you know, we need to make a decision, and it's a tough one, it's an expensive decision. But I think you've done a great job, Mr. Rapp, making it clear how the dollars shake out.
If I could just add,
Yes.
one thing I want to say is that we do have other debt that is coming due for refinance. So when that happens, you know, that could also provide us with some more money available, because that would reduce our debt service on those. And again, I've got no dog. I'm not advocating for anything. I love my office in this building. Set up in my office, I can watch the dogs play in the yard next door. So.
Ms. Zesecki?
Okay, thank you. I have a lot of questions. So I guess first, Tony, if I remember correctly, from last year's tax increase, I think it was 2.6, 1% was for debt services.
Yes.
Are you going to be recommending something similar this year?
I can't answer that yet, because I have to see where we are.
I just want the public to know, like, when we're talking about raising taxes, are we talking about, you know, in that range, again, similar?
I would doubt we're gonna, our, one of the reasons that we did 1% was because we had such a high Act 1 index that I was, you know, we were recommending that we take advantage of that. Our Act 1 index is a full 1.2% lower this year. So I think that we would not recommend to go that high, just for debt service.
Okay.
And, you know, if we're looking at, you know, I know the board's tolerance has been around 2%. So, you know, it depends on where we come out for, you know, with the education, with covering education this year, as far as what we would have, if we have to raise taxes to cover education. And I'd also remind, let's just let the board know that we were doing better from year to year with our money that we were getting from the state. Going into the future, for the foreseeable future, they've changed the way, there's been a change in the way that things are being funded from the state. And we're not getting the type of increase in our basic education and special education subsidies that we were getting in the past. So.
Okay. The next, I wanted to go back to Mr. Hickey's question about fundraising. I think that's a terrific idea. We've also talked about like naming rights for this building. Like, you know, if there's a big donor that could come in, this could be the Andy Sanko building or something. So I think that's terrific. And I know I've heard from community members that, you know, there is interest in that. It's a lot of money, but, you know, as you say, split it, or, you know, some contribution from the public. We've also heard from, I guess it was somebody, maybe it was Tara. Somebody said that the more you have community support, you know, the more likely it is that you get those grants. Was it you last week? Maybe. Oh, you said something else. Okay. Anyway, so, you know, I think that there is potential for that. As far as the borough, you know, Newtown Borough is this little tiny borough, and as Tony said, like, their annual budget is $6 million. Like, they don't have a lot of money, and so part of it is, you know, we're putting an enormous, even if we gift the building to them, it's kind of an enormous burden for them to manage this. There was a crack on the steps at Newtown Borough Hall. They're trying to get a grant for it. I mean, there's been a crack in the steps for like 7 years. Like, things don't move fast. It's a little borough. However, it's really important to Council Rock. This building was the first school in the district, and it's the only original building in the district, and it's the only school district property in the borough. Like, the borough now doesn't have anything else. Like, this is the only thing that we have here in the borough. Somebody questioned about condos. I guess I just wanted to bring up that was something. There is currently zoning limitations on, this couldn't be turned into condos. Now, whether the borough would, give a variance or something, I have no idea. I think, to me, it seems clear, like the community wants us to keep it. It's the least expensive choice. It preserves and values the history of the building and the investments the district has made in this building over the last 25 years. I feel like we really need to consider whether it's, I don't know if we can do a $7 million now, and, if we did the $7 million fix the issues within Chancellor, does the administration have to move out again to fix the other $8 million at another time? So we will probably want to do it all at once. I mean, I know it's a burden to ask the administration to move out.
Yeah, because you'd be touching things and undoing things that you did before. It would be the kind of decision you'd make and say, we're either going to do this or that. I wouldn't.
I had a question also about the chillers at Richboro Middle. So if we were to move to Richboro Middle, the chillers are only needed for air conditioning, right? So like theoretically, maybe we could like not move there during the summer.
You would need them from April through October.
The whole time.
April through October, yeah. Because they don't have, that building's set up where there's not operable windows. So when you get a 70-degree day in April,
Yeah.
and it stays warm over the evening, you can't cool that building, so it just gets pretty uncomfortable.
But 2 years of that lease would pay for your chillers. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not advocating, or I'm just suggesting.
Correct. But we also have to remember that building is 60 years old. The boilers there are 60 years old. The roof there.
There's definitely other things that are.
Yeah, the roof there
The building is
is
very tight.
35 or 40 years old, so there's challenges.
Yeah. The last thing I want to say for now, although I might ask to add more later, is that this building was here before any of us were born. It'll be here after we all go. We are stewards of this building, and it's our job to preserve it and to protect it and to make it be what it can be.
I think I was next.
Okay.
So I agree with everything Tracy said. We all want to preserve this building. We just have to find, I don't know if we can find a way all by ourselves to do that. There is Newtown Borough, there is Newtown Township. There is maybe other townships that would be willing to help. Maybe there's grants that were, from Fitzpatrick's office. They mentioned that there could be something substantial, but we don't really have any numbers yet. But I'm looking at my notes from last time, and Tony, you said it was 82.5 million borrowing power, but it could be 117.5 because of some dynamic kind of.
Yeah, so
yes.
that's what I talked about a few minutes ago, where right now we increased our debt service, and that debt service is more than what we owe. So because it's more than what we owe, we're putting money away. So there's a lot of work that would go into that, but you would be putting together a wraparound kind of thing where because we've been putting debt service money away, we have $3 million in that account. And let's just say our debt service is $20 million. 1 year maybe for 2 years, we could borrow enough that our debt service would be 21.5 million, and we would use that 3 million to pay that extra over those 2 years. So that's how that works.
Okay. So, and then you said something like a 1% tax increase increases our borrowing capacity by 34 million?
Yes.
Okay.
Like 34.
So if, this is just hypothetical, right? If we have a 1% tax increase every year for the next, I don't know how many years, it's 35 million times, I say 5 years, increasing our borrowing power?
Yes.
Okay. So when I'm looking at the must-do renovations, okay, the 2 elementary schools and would be about, close to 60 million. North is 120 million. South, 140. So, and it keeps going without even addressing some of the other issues like Wrightstown. We need a lot of money to just keep the schools open and educate our students. So, and some of this is like, we must do, this is like our schools, right? So, but maybe the way we discussed it earlier, we can plan it out in a way that we increase our borrowing power and we sort of like do a timeline of when to do what in a way that we can get more things done. So what I'm gonna say is that it's a good idea to talk about all the possibilities, but let's, at the side of our brain, keep that the actual cost, because I don't think we have a lot of room to maneuver because we have the schools to do, right? And we are all very fiscally responsible. Nobody wants to do like crazy tax increases. So it's a balancing act.
Can I?
Yes, please.
So we have, you're correct, absolutely correct. And if you look at 1% over 5 years, that's $170 million in borrowing power. We do
That
have
could
more.
do south.
What?
That could be renovating south.
You do south and a little bit of north.
Right.
Maybe a couple windows.
Yeah.
But I right now, we talked about I think it was 1.4 million I said was 1.7 million was a 1% tax increase. That's actually getting kind of low now because we've been increasing taxes, so the total amount's going up, so 1% increases were more now than it were last year, and even more than it was 2 years ago. So that does increase our borrowing power more than that. So there's, and like I said, we have refunding debt that we can do, hopefully when interest rates come down. We have, so I've been working with PFM on this, and we have a lot of moving parts going on already, and I've just been pulling data from them. At some point, whether that's, you providing what you'd like to see, and then I sit down with them and make, part of the plan to say, how can we plan to pay for that? So I would just say it's difficult right now and I get that you want to know how much to spend, but it's difficult right now to bring them in and lay out plans without the board at least giving us an indication of where you want to go. So, and you're absolutely right, that's something that is very important, we need to figure that out. But we could spend months working on that just based on the number of options that we're looking at here.
Right, So I just want to respond. I agree. I think for me, you gave me the borrowing power already.
Yes.
You already talked about it. So I kind of know what is our borrowing power. So everything I will think about has to be around these numbers.
Right.
Because I cannot suggest some fantastic idea that we cannot afford.
Right.
So that's what I said, when we have this discussion, we have to prioritize. Let's make sure that we have these numbers in our mind, so we
Absolutely.
know what we're talking about, what now we can afford.
Exactly.
Thank you. Mr. Hickey, did you have another question?
I did, but I'll ask this other one instead, as you said, like, there's a lot of things we have to decide of what we're gonna do, but I think one of the things we need to decide of what we're gonna do is educationally, I think we need to decide what we're gonna do with the sixth grade / middle schools, because that affects everything that we do. Either we're gonna go ahead with a sixth grade center or a new middle school model, or we're not. Because depending on, if we decide we wanted to go, the district or whatever the board, we wanted to go to a 6th, 7th, 8th grade school model, well, then that affects every one of these numbers on here, and it affects it first. You know, because if we decide to do, I'm just gonna say, just say we decide to renovate North. And then we say, well, let's go to a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade model. Well, we may have just priced ourselves out of being able to do that. Which is fine, if it's not that important to do, that's great, but I think we should decide what we wanna do educationally with all of our kids. And we've talked about the sixth grade before, whether it be a sixth grade center, a 6th, 7th, 8th middle school or not. And I think once we make that decision, then we can start making, like you said, some of these other decisions based on that, because if, we're not gonna be able to do some of the things we want to do educationally if we decide to spend our money without thinking about what we're going to do.
Ms. Khan, did you have one question?
I forgot, so I'll have to think about it.
Mr. Hickey brought up a really good point. And I think we're all intrigued by the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade model, and see a lot of pluses in it. And I do think we ought to talk about it and explore it. Dr. Senko, if we were to look at making the transition district-wide to the 6, 7, 8 model, irrespective of facilities, in terms of educational planning and staffing and all that, how long would it take for that to be implemented?
We would need no less than 1 summer and 1 year, I would think. By the time, you know, we do the curricular stuff, the staffing part of it, moving people around. So if we had the space right now at both middle schools and we just decided to go to a 6, 7, 8, it will take some time. Because primarily at the elementary school, we're self-contained. At the middle school, we have the teaming model. And then at the high school, we have the straight period schedule. So, you know, there would be a lot of work to do on Tammy's side of it, on Ronnie's side of it. Considerable work with our curriculum coordinators, but, you know, given that if space were not the hurdle here, it would probably take us the better part of a year, you know, including the summer. We'd get a lot of work done over a summer.
Did you have your, okay, Mr. Seki?
I have a question. When I'm looking at the outstanding renovation projects, and obviously Chancellor isn't on here, but I wonder if it might be possible to have a discussion and perhaps even add a column that discusses how urgent some of these things are, because it's probably something we've discussed in the past, but you know, it would be helpful to have it here. You know, how urgent is the renovation at Newtown Elementary? How urgent is, you know, the north renovation versus the south? I think we talked about that south, you know, had a little bit more time than north, but can somebody refresh my memory on that? And is it something that we can add to this chart?
It's in the binder.
We had a chart that actually laid out the warm, safe, and dry issues.
Yeah, that was the first
Everything-
part of the master plan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, when we're talking about like Newtown Elementary, how, does that have to be done within the next 2 years, the next 5 years, the next year? Where are we?
These questions are very difficult. You know, really, it's difficult, it's just difficult to know when the equipment's going to decide that it doesn't want to function, right? So, that building is 1989, is it?
Which one,
I have
Newtown,
it.
94?
94, Newtown L?
So Newtown was opened in 94, and then we put the addition on, and it reopened in 95.
Right. Okay. So it's 30 years old. I mean, the equipment is nearing the end of its life. You could get 35.
We are doing the chiller, remember we approved last year, the chiller replacement that was coming up, that we're actually doing the work this summer. So the chiller, the roof,
We've been holding off on the roof. The roof is due for replacement, but we've kind of put it on hold because we're not sure. Obviously, it would be more effective and cost effective as part of a project versus doing it on its own, right? Especially if you're gonna have new roof penetrations for HVAC and things like that.
Would it be easier just to prioritize these 1 through 5 and say,
That'd be great.
based on systems?
Yes, I
Yeah.
think
Probably systems is what we'll try to.
systems it is, but the infrastructure for sure.
And if we do the schools, you have Richboro Middle that would need to be occupied, then we couldn't, and if we did this, we'd still have to find some place for you guys, like, for the administration to go. So there's be a lot of different people moving.
well, Newtown Elementary and Welsh will not fit in Richboro.
Yeah.
So those
Right.
renovations are gonna have to be phased, and we're gonna have to creatively create spaces for students to be. Meaning, what'd you say? Yes,
Yeah, wings that we have to do, you know.
we're gonna have to do modulars,
Similar to what we did at Sulphine in phases,
In the phase.
except that,
right?
We
we're
built
gonna-
an addition
Yeah, you
for
had the
phasing
room.
there.
yeah. So depending on what the renovation for Newtown Elementary looks like, if we put an addition, then we house kids in there, but we're probably gonna have to add modulars to the projects until we get the renovation done. We'll have to fight that too.
Mr. Roosevelt?
Hello, thank you. I have a couple of quick ones. It's been an interesting conversation. Tony, regarding our borrowing power, how long, whatever the number finally is, but how long would that borrowing power be good for?
I'm not sure.
Well, obviously, we're not going to be able, part of the master plan is figuring out what we're gonna do and in what order we're doing them. So we're talking about a multi-year sequence.
Right.
As Dr. Sanko indicated, there's one element of this, just programming and planning from a curricular standpoint, that takes 1 summer and 1 year to go through. So I'm interested in understanding the borrowing. We outlined some numbers before, that there's 82 available, 117 with a wraparound, and then if you add some taxes, maybe you get to like 151 or something like that, right? But that's like effectively for next year. If we were to do that, how long before you have access to more money? Or another way to think about it is, if this gets pushed out a couple of years for some planning and sequencing and moving around that we've been talking about, how long would that, could it be larger effectively?
So that's more complicated, but 2029 is the next time we have a significant debt drop off.
Okay.
When I talk about a wraparound, that kind of includes using some of that drop off in 2029. So we talk about wrapping up the money over the next 3 years from what we have already, so that becomes available to cover the rest of the debt. So at 82, we have more money becoming available in 29. At 120, we don't have that money becoming available in 2029.
Got it, okay. So that's helpful, just I think for all of us around the table to be thinking about. Next question, Dr. Sanko, regarding capacity is not really the right word, but available space. If sixth grade was out of Wrightstown Elementary School, would Wrightstown be able to use that building as it's intended, be able to use the gym, have all classrooms? I mean, does that solve the problem in Wrightstown? Or is it reasonable to conclude that it might get?
Much like Tony's answer, that's complicated. The answer today could be yes, but dependent upon our June 1st enrollment, it could be no.
Got it. Okay. So if the district went to a 6th through 8 middle school model, so that would obviously mean 6th grade is out of Wrightstown. Does that resolve some of that Mr. Schrader pointed out, some of these overcrowding issues that we look forward to as we get to 10 years? Is it reasonable to assume that that may solve problems?
It's reasonable to assume that, but again, when we look at those numbers from the Cropper report, you know, he is projected out over 10 years, and we all know that I think the demographer is extremely confident in the first 5 years of projections.
Yes.
And so, you know, I don't think that we can be 100% certain of that, but I think reasonably certain based on the demographer's projections.
Okay, and then the next dovetails in with Chancellor. Obviously, this building is important to the district, it's important to the borough, it's important to the community that reside around it. I think that the solution involves all three as well. And regarding grant, which we discussed might have a more, or at least with these numbers to make a dent, have we done the work to see what grants are available if this building belonged to the borough, not from the district? Could we effectively do the work for the borough and find a grant that might work that would resolve that? Or at least help?
It's the same grants that we would look at, just they would have a better chance. And we've met with the borough, we've met with U.S. Congressman's office, we've met with the Bucks County Redevelopment Authority to discuss and you know, there's small options out there. The big option is, again, the federal money, but for making a dent, there's, you know, I don't know that, like, there's an awful lot of, like, we don't have a grant, there's an awful lot of work in putting this together, and putting a lot of these together. I don't know that, you know, and I don't have their information to put on a grant application.
Because I remember participating in some of those meetings, and I remember with respect to grants from the Development Authority, notes and participation from that indicated, we're talking about hundreds of thousands, we're not talking about millions. But that was based upon it being school property. So I recognize that Council Rock doesn't have a grant person, and that this is time consuming to go through. But I'm wondering if that same individual could evaluate what sort of grants are available if this was borough municipal property instead of school district property. Because if it's there and that starts to make a dent, that helps in understanding how much the district could arrive at and what sort of fundraising elements we could arrive at to narrow things down.
So there are available monies that are available. There are available monies, most of which we have found through all of our work And that includes the work Tony just talked about with all the folks we met with. We have looked at those options. One of the things we spoke about with the congressman's office was that there is an opportunity to get on a list. And we completed the necessary steps to get on this list to be able to receive funding. But we were told very clearly that only 15, and I apologize, I forget the name of the funding source, but we were told very clearly, if you get on it, it's unlikely that school districts get on it. It was paused for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But my point is, the same things that we looked at would be the same grants available to a municipality, a borough, a township.
All right. I thought that I understood that more would be available from the municipality and less from the school district.
On the grant, you have to check, are you a school district, a borough?
Okay. But the money is the same.
The money is the same.
Got it.
The money is out there. Now, the available monies are out there.
But the available monies that we're talking about that are out there are hundreds of thousands, not multiple millions.
I think the one that we looked at that just found was $33,000.
33 grand, right.
I think, am I correct in that?
The order of magnitude is correct. The number might not be exact, but the order of magnitude is correct.
Which sort of closes the door on the ability of a grant to work regardless of who owns the property, whether it's borough or district. 33 grand isn't going to do much. That's not going to even really get the site fencing and the porta potties here.
That's right.
Not from Congress, not, Fitzpatrick's office, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it was like millions, $1 or $2 million. It's not like thousands.
No, and that was the list I was talking about, that there are, I think they, David and Doug, maybe you know the title of, that we spoke with Congressman Fitzpatrick's office.
Kai?
Kai? I'm sorry?
Kai.
Kyle.
Kai, right?
Yeah. And there are millions of dollars, but they would accept 15 projects per year.
The RACP grants?
Say it again?
RACP grants?
That's it. Thank you. They would accept 15 proposals a year, and you may or may not get it. And then there was a moratorium on school districts even applying for it for some time.
Well, not to jump ahead, but just sort of a thing of things to come because I recognize the time. We ended our last meeting with a discussion of, is there space and what would the cost be to add capacity to our 2 middle schools to include 6th grade? And Mr. Grader has that number here, and which is not insignificant, but it is talking about kids. And I want to read the right one, but at the same point, I don't want to steal your thunder.
Oh,
Part of the presentation.
I already stole my own thunder earlier.
Mr. Roosevelt, can I interrupt 1 second? If we're ready to move on from Chancellor, we can transition into that.
I don't, yeah.
I just don't want, I don't want to steal the thunder quite yet, but I also don't want to transition if we're not done with Chancellor.
Okay. Well, it seems like there's still some issues for Chancellor, but it also seems like some X's are through some options. So, but I do agree. I think the solution for this is going to involve the community, the borough, and the district. And now that we know grants largely don't help, or at least it's a Hail Mary, to use the sporting analogy. Something may be available. But from my position as one of 9, I don't think that we have enough information to make a decision about what to do with Chancellor quite yet. In the same way, we don't have enough information to make a decision on the master planning. We're still sort of gathering and evaluating information. That's.
Anyone else have anything else on Chancellor before we move forward?
I can answer the one question that came up relative to the age of the infrastructure of the top list here, just so you understand. So the Newtown Elementary School is about 31 years old, right? We talked about that. Then when you get to Welsh, we're talking about 25 years old. And then North and South are in that 23 age, because North was renovated, but not all of North was renovated. So North would definitely be ahead of South, and there's a lot of that infrastructure that's still there from when it was built in the 70s. So they're really listed in, basically in the order that you'd want to consider those, you know, if you were just looking at this purely as renovations. But if you're talking about other things, right, then we'd have to talk about that. But that's just to give you some
Thank you.
numbers. Yep, thank you.
Okay. You have a question, Mr.? Sure.
Hi, thanks. Doug, it's great. Thank you for coming. Glad you're still here. Since I've been hearing all, renovations, every 20 years we renovate. And I see when the major systems, we got roof, air, climate control. Is there any other systems besides that, the major systems that fail that we have to do?
The electrical service.
So the electric. So it's,
Plumbing.
So it seems like the philosophy is when the system fails, or the systems fail, obviously the roofs can be replaced. But then we end up renovating the whole school, so that might have been good, like the first run that we did, brand new construction. I'm thinking 20, 25 years. I mean, a lot of us have houses that are 20, 25 years old. And if one of the systems breaks, you replace the main unit, but we wouldn't go and gut all the duct work and do all the walls and carpeting and all that things, which is nice to do. So, and I think that's all in your book. So your book shows what it costs, because if you just look at the top 5, including putting Chancellor somewhere else, either as an addition or something, it's 422 or 444 million. So we can add that right there just before we talk about education. And that's in the philosophy that every 20 years we're renovating these. And then I think, just because what I'm trying to say is these are great numbers, but the reality is we can't afford all this. So then we look at doing what other schools might do, or private institutions that don't have taxpayers' money. Like I think past a private school like Archbishop Wood or Community Universe or some of these other Catholic schools, those buildings are the same buildings that they were. And then just think about Philadelphia. It might not be the best schools, like if you think about how much problems their infrastructure probably has, as you could say, you can nod your head, but somebody's got to pay for it. What I'm saying, we're not even close to that, even our worst school. So I think when we're looking at this and planning it all out, the reality is we probably have to stretch out what we're doing, and we've shown how we've done that with a nice high school at North. It's built in a way that you can't make that work. So I'm thinking when we're looking at, Newtown's probably next, it might not be a full renovation, but replacing the systems, get the roof done, get the HVAC boilers updated, the electric sockets still work. I don't know what you do. But once you have to rewire a school, then you're obviously going to do a full renovation.
A lot of that comes down to panels. It's not so much the end devices as much as it is the infrastructure, the panels, the primary service, getting to those.
So that's the one key. One thing we talked about before, which I hate to even mention publicly at this point, because I'm trying to do some research with other states. It's not, but with the prevailing wage laws that we have, it's about 20% more expensive. If we're talking our 5 big projects, that's $80 million just because of the prevailing wage laws in Pennsylvania. I'm thinking, just like everything else, I kind of think about things tend to be addressed when I think about things like this, and that might be something that's going to be addressed, because I don't think we can afford to keep doing business the way that we're doing it. As I said, there's $500 million right here, and talking about to keep things warm, safe, and dry is bigger than the budget. Well, $400 billion is bigger than what we have, obviously. If you could get all these projects done today, you could spend $500 million and get the school up to where it's supposed to be, but obviously you have to stage it. But if you look at your manual, these are the things that need to be done. And by the time we're done, these connected, we're back to Churchville, and we're back to Holland, and we're moving on. So, obviously, there has to be a long-term, revenue look. We have to look at all of the biggest things that were, like the biggest, obligations that we have, you know? And so it's very concerning. But to circle back, so that's what I'm gonna ask you, to maybe when we're planning this out, to figure out not just what's necessary to be done, and then we can map that out. That might be more for Mr. Rapp to start working on, because it's a wish list. And I'm also saying, go back to the beginning, the assumptions we're making on square footage can be brought down, probably. If we can find out 250, 350, 450, and the 450 is pretty high for new construction. It is, I mean, from what I'm seeing. You know, but that's, part of it is because you're using wages, right, certain assumptions.
Sure, we have to, it's prevailing wage, right?
And so if you could get back to me what it was all in for the Star Center, that would be a good thing for me. That's probably more for the administration. Just so I have that as a baseline when I start looking at that square footage and what that costs. I'm gonna try to put a reasonable inflation, tag on that. And, but, you know, I think most importantly is we need to pick one or two projects to get done now and see how they fit in a hypothetical long-term plan. And whatever's going to affect the students first, that's what we need to, yes, I have that take care of where we have to pass the yeah, thanks.
So it's 300.
Doug, can you clarify something on the district option analysis? When you're looking at option 2, and it says renovate Newtown Elementary School in addition to accommodate various building overcrowding. That figure that is to the right, the 59 million, that includes that Newtown Elementary School renovation, 26 million, that's all the way up top. So that's encompassing that.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So that would be the, okay. I just want to make sure that I've got
And just
clarity on
clarification to the top 5, one of those can come out because it's 2 north solutions up there. So instead of 440, it's, not that this makes a dent, but it's 300.
Any other questions?
Yes, I was gonna ask you if you wanted us to transition to the next slide.
Everybody ready to go?
Can I just answer Mr. Hidalgo's question?
Yeah.
The amount that was spent on the Star Center was $12,494,600. Yes.
What year?
2030.
2021?
Yeah.
Is that what it was, 2021?
Yeah, it has a different type of kitchen, and it's not exactly the same as building a new,
Full administrative building, maybe.
oh, I see. I got you.
This is 20.
You might have
We're about 20 million right now for construction. We're at 35,000 square feet.
Yeah, that one's only around 25,000 square feet. And it's also pre-COVID.
And it's 5 years, not even that, outside.
Just before we go on to, we're gonna finish with Chancellor, 9:30, so we have all these people, if there's any comments, let's see if we wanna do that first, and then we can move forward, because that's what we have next. So is there any, public comments that would like, about the Chancellor Center? Okay, I'm just gonna read something, and then we'll go one by one. Public comment is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board. We would ask that you limit your comments to no longer than 3 minutes. Please consider the fact that there may be young children in the audience or watching this broadcast live on CRTV when speaking. It is our goal to maintain a respectful environment so the members of our community have an equal opportunity to address the board without interruption. While the board welcomes your ideas and will consider them in deliberating an issue, we may not respond to your comments or questions. Who would like to go first?
Go this way.
And state your name and your
Good
township, please.
evening. My name's Terry Kiley, and I've worked in the borough, Newtown Borough, over 30 years. Yes, the Chancellor Center is the crown jewel of our community and Council Rock School District. When it was originally built in 1871, it cost $5,000. And it would be many million to build a new building or add on to another building. But of course, that number is going to rise if Council Rock continues to put off addressing renovation needs of this building. One of the board members at a previous meeting stated that old buildings cost money, but all buildings, including new ones, cost money to keep them functional, and you brought up that 20 years. Owning any building requires a yearly assessment to address any impending issues to keep the building functional. This building has been neglected, and that has not been done in this building. I just returned from a visit to Charleston, and I was amazed by the pristine condition of buildings more than 300 years old. How does that happen? It happens when the building is cared for and taken care of by the owners. My house is only 90 years old, and I am keeping it functional. We kept using that term, warm, safe, and dry. I'm keeping it functional by continuing to address any issues. My budget is limited, and your budget is limited. And I only do the things that must be addressed, such as plumbing, boiling replacement, window replacements, and of course, cleaning. I own over a building. It makes economic sense to do this, so I do not have to abandon my dwelling and go out and purchase another house at a much greater cost. I would recommend fixing issues with Chancellor at a cost of $6 to $7 million, and then reevaluate. A lot of things that you're talking about, adding on to another building, Wrightstown, all of those things cost a lot more and going to take a lot more time. You have issues you need to address now. If you're having water in the basement, address it. That's what I do. I'd love to address every single thing in my house, but I don't. As a fiscally responsible homeowner, that is what I do with my home. The other issue, all these other replacement costs, what are they truly going to cost? We're hearing 21 million, we're hearing, 20 million. They're going to cost, and when are they going to happen? Let's address the renovation needs of this building now, instead of continuing to ignore them. In the end, the cost of renovating the building will only continue to rise as we continue to ignore them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm Mary Lutz. I lived in the borough since 1977. I guess I'm addressing the staff and their location. How many people physically work in this building? I know you mentioned you have 14. How many people do we have to relocate, do you think?
75. I think it's around 75.
Around 75.
Around 75.
Okay, because my friend works in a neighboring school district, and what they do is they divided like maintenance up to one building, and then they're not all together, but more importantly, the superintendent in his staff and other people that are in charge of the different programs, they are attached to a middle school. And that would save people from having to rent. And also, I really hope that you can save this building. It's old, you have to take care of it. And I looked at your chart, and the one building that really seems to have a problem is the Walsh Elementary School. For its age, it is falling apart. And you figure there's a district that the buildings are built by Levitt, and they are still using them. And so what you do is you take a building, you work on it, then you go to another building. But how old are those buildings in Levittown? And they're still being used. Thank you.
Michelle Clarence Mills, lifelong resident of Newtown Belleville. Thanks to the board, administration, and CR community for your work and the opportunity to speak. My grandson had his way. Tonight's message would be simple. C is for Cookie Monster. But we know that in life, C is for connections. Connections are what give our lives meaning. C is for the numerous connections the Chancellor Center offers and will continue to if the building is repaired. Chancellor also represents CR's fundamental tenets. C is for community, one of CR's basic tenets. Chancellor offers common ground with its central location to all. Fellowship is provided as we all own Chancellor, and it represents this district. C is for culture, another of CR's tenets. Chancellor represents the high-quality education since the 1870s, our valued customs and our achievements, our attitudes and behaviors that are inspirational are founded on Chancellor. C is for classroom, the last tenet of CR. Chancellor offered the first classrooms to educate our students. This was the beginning of greatness. I thought my time was up.
No, you're good, you're good.
We sit in one of the historic classrooms. Again, we talk about sponsorship funding outside this room, sponsored by Orleans the Builder. How about Toll? Toll just got permission again on Durham Road. C is for Cornerstone. Chancellor is the center of the district. And Mr. Roosevelt made that apparent that location is key. C is for cheap choice. Do the math. Repairing Chancellor is the cheapest option. Decide to repair, uphold the history, and then pursue the work that needs to be done for our students and staff. C is for, Mr. Hickey has influenced me, creative ways to help finance. And again, grants, drop in the bucket, but even C is for corporate sponsorship and decision made, then focus on C is for children, what this district is about. C is for close. Keep Chancellor close to your heart. Keep the Chancellor in its rightful role. C is for continue to do the work that needs to be done. C is for choice. Make the right choice to make our future worthy of our past. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, Tara Barney McLaughlin, Newtown Borough. I don't have that beautiful a home. To follow up with that from that. I think Ms. Snuggie, when she used the word stewardship, had keyed onto something really important. And I think that Mr. Roosevelt, you also, as did some others, in the conversation about grants bringing together the community. And I do wonder if the key to some of those alternate grants, but drops help fill the bucket. Some sort of, and this would involve the solicitor plural, like community, municipal, district partnership, possibly including even the Historic Association, and their members and what they may be interested to do. And I may be speaking pie in the sky here, and I don't know if this is possible, but the recurring concept that what you've heard, that school districts are less likely to qualify for some of the grants at which you've looked than municipalities, but if the municipality joins in with you and says, hey, we use this building too, we're in a team with them, I mean, I don't know how much the community uses this building, do they come in and like rent rooms for meetings or whatever, but whatever use the community has of it, and those things can be highlighted. And I don't know what's involved in making some sort of organization or community partnership. But that could be the thing that helps get the grants plural, because you now have that name behind it, and they say, oh, it's not just the school district trying to not dump so much out of their own budget, but the whole community wants it, and they've, you've got the group of stakeholders. So I don't know how this is done, but maybe it would help.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, you want to go?
Chris Rams, also part of the borough, and a parent in the district as well. I think, so I was here last month, and I will reiterate some of the same points that I brought up there. Like, looking at the spreadsheet, like, it was eye-popping. The same shot that you guys no doubt see and are clearly trying to figure out a solution for. As I look at it though, I mean, I think I continue to see we need to ground ourselves on what is feasible, what you can't do all of these things. And we're gonna have to look at what's the most important things that we gotta do and make the points that were being raised earlier. Like, maybe we need to look at what do we have to do to make the building secure, functional, warm, clean, rather than stepping in and saying just because we are touching it, we should jump from $7 million to a $15 million. Or just because we're faced with the option, we spend $21 million. I think if you look at all the things that we're doing, which I'll to say I would encourage you, like, let's focus on the kids. Let's put our money there and choose what cheap options we have to sustain our administrative building, make it functional, but maybe we don't need to spend $15 million in the first go. We can stretch it out over a longer period of time, or upgrade the lights with our facility budget, so we can do things in pieces over time, which sounds like better lines up with our borrowing capacity.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I just say, Eric Nickel, Newtown Borough. I just want to say thank you to everybody. It's a really difficult decision. You've got a lot on your plate, but I appreciate the outside box thinking of working with the borough, of navigating through the economics and prevailing wage and all the different things. You talked about the return on investment. It's hard to quantify that, but there should be some non-economic value in maintaining the school district gem within the school district. That's not economic, of having that as being, you know, the original cornerstone. So, but yeah, I appreciate everybody. Tracy, great comments, and everybody else here, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes.
I had 2 minutes left. So this is just following up on your intangible gem aspect. But at Market Day, the Historic Association brings stuff out of their basements and closets and, you know, they sell things off because they only have so much room. And I picked up from back when these were popular, a ceramic Chancellor School where you put the light bulb inside and, you know, it's made of clay and it's obviously somebody had it made at one point and I don't know when, you might know when. So of course I had to have it and I took it home with me. People don't make these types of buildings out of a random modern school building that's box on box with some brick and steel and whatever. They don't. So that's my final point.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you. Thank you all for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'd like to make a comment, just because I appreciate all of y'all coming and being so patient. And I think it was really smart of Ms. Horner to invite you to speak now. So thank you. You've been here, we've noticed, we've read your emails and so forth. I personally have no idea what we ought to do about Chancellor. I've wrestled with this a lot. It means a lot to me. I want to correct one misimpression. We have not neglected this building. We've put a lot of money into this building. We've put a lot of time and effort into caring for this building. Mr. Taylor, over the years, has kept us surprised step by step by step as to what we need to do with this building.
You put a new roof on a couple of years ago. It's very large.
Repointing, we've, you know, repainting, trim, so forth and so on. And it's because I think we all recognize we have an obligation as stewards of this historic property, to take good care of it. We have not neglected it. And, you know, we're listening to you and we're weighing it all. And yes, you're right, we have some very difficult decisions ahead of us. So thank you.
Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you.
Ready to go?
Perfect,
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
What on?
Man.
All right.
Other things to worry about.
Go on to
This
the
is
next
what
one.
we saw.
Yes.
Was ENR escalation. So when we're throwing numbers in 2019 of that, which is probably not, when was Star Center done?
You have to do that.
18, 19?
We did rip
I don't know. Ask,
So bidding would have been probably here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's about 75, is that right? Yeah, so you take that and you do ENR's numbers and you're here at 400 today.
Yeah.
Okay, Ms. Binda, you ready to go on?
Yeah, so we're gonna continue with, grade band adjustment costs.
Is what it is.
So at the last meeting, there was a lot of conversation regarding grade bands and the potential use of our middle schools. So we put together two options. David, if you're going to hand it over to you to
Oh, I just
discuss.
did it.
Are you finally gonna get going here?
No. The only thing I'll note about those two that I'm noticing is when you do the version 1 to go to 6th grade in the middle school, you're getting about 750 seats additional in the elementaries, because you pull 1,000 out, 8 to 900, depending on which year it is. So you're actually getting quite a few more seats there for that dollar value. The current grade band, option 2, you're kind of just collecting the rest of the seats that you need to across the 2 sets of buildings. So that's right sizing for the greatest number that we see, at least in the next 10 years, according to the Crawford study. Pulling 6th grade out is going to give you quite a few more seats in the elementaries across the board. That's why the dollar value is different there.
Any questions?
Can we go over this again?
Sure.
Sure, yeah.
You want to start with the option 1?
Yeah.
Okay. So that is, Newtown's getting an addition that's picking up Wrightstown's overcrowding only. And Wrightstown's overcrowding, depending on which analysis you look at, is somewhere around 115 students to get that building back to 90% capacity. And so you're adding, and I can tell you exactly what it is here.
What was that number again? I'm sorry.
115, 115.
Thank you.
I think you're adding 115.
115 students, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what we did was 115 students at about 150 square feet per student, which is an elementary school number. And that's why you're adding 17,000 feet to Newtown to get you there. And then as per the question that you asked, then you do the renovation number for Newtown, add the addition, and that's how you come to that total. When you're in option 1 and you decide to go to a 6-8, now you're pulling the equivalent of 800 to 900 students out again, depending on which year you do it. And so the team roughly said 1,000 students or 500 per in addition to the 2 middle schools. So you're adding a 500 student school to each of those essentially. And you will get, for 500 students, you will get another art room, you'll get another tech ed room, you'll get another music, because you're into a full school worth of pull-out spaces and special spaces. So that's why you're seeing one whole school worth of dollar value there. That 107 million is a giant 1,000-student school, even though it's 2 pieces. If you're trying to rationalize that, that's where that number really comes from, even though it's done through the math on the page.
And some work at Holland for the cafeteria.
Actually, because of the 500 edition, you're doing more than just the CAF. But you're right.
But
you're
we
right.
have some additional things to do
Correct.
there because
Well,
it's just not right-sized.
that's carried in option 2. So the option 2, Doug and I had gone over this one last time, and that is the 7-8 middle school, which is your third line down in the option 2. 7-8 middle school, you're adding 150 students to pick up the capacity issues that you have in those two buildings. And you'll remember that we also said we're going to add some additional square footage for the cafeteria. So that's where that, and this should jive with the number you saw last time for adding 150 students to Holland plus Newtown. But again, what you're doing with those two in option 2 is you're picking up the overcrowding in 3 elementaries, which is Sulphine-Stone, Wrightstown, and Welsh. And you're adding the capacity that you need at the middles.
Any other questions?
So the overcrowding, but that's in that 10-year Cropper.
Yes.
But Holland's already pretty much at capacity
Yes, it
right
is.
this minute.
Correct.
Since it opened.
Yep.
Okay.
Or very soon thereafter, yeah.
Right.
So what is the option 2, the first one? This is renovate Newtown Elementary, build an addition?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For
275 students.
275 students.
Yes. And I had, just to clarify what that is, I have the first presentation from January 2nd on my computer. You're not looking at it. And it says that Welsh in 10 years is over capacity, Sulphine-Stone's over capacity, and Wrightstown. So I went back through the spreadsheets to find out what that meant, and it meant 275 students is what those will be over capacity in 10 years.
Mr. Tate?
May I? Are we at a good point for questions?
Oh, yeah.
So my one question is going to be, I'm amazed that there's such a difference between option number 1 and option number 2, and so I want you to tell me why I shouldn't immediately choose option number 2. But the other is, either plan has renovating Newtown Elementary and an addition. Does that make Newtown Elementary an elementary school that's bigger than we want? It's a fairly good-sized elementary school now. How would that compare to our largest elementary? Is our largest elementary now Sulphine-Stone?
Richboro Middle, Richboro 8. I think Richville.
It's either that or, no, I think it's good now or.
Well, Sulphine-Stone's the largest.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
So how would this new renovated and expanded Newtown Elementary compare? Would that be like too big?
If you're in the 275 student addition, in using, remember we redid the capacities with full day kindergarten. Newtown, if I've got the right line, says 736 students currently. You'd be adding 275 to that, so it'd be a 1,000 student building.
What's Sulphine-Stone?
That is, at least in this rating, 860.
Yeah, Newtown Elementary suddenly becomes massive, which I'm not sure we want to do. But my bigger question though, David, option 2 is less than half the price of option 1.
Yep. Because when you pull the 6th grade out of all the elementaries, you're netting 750 additional seats that are just there across the district at that point in time. So you're building 750 students worth more when you do the 1,000 student addition to the 2 middle schools. I think we were kind of just as surprised by that until we realized that the level set this. So from the beginning, the challenging discussion has been, do you redistrict? And in the elementaries, you've got capacities from 63% capacity, obviously up to the 105% that 10 years out. But you've got a number of buildings that have some room in them.
Ms. Stone?
No, that's exactly what I wanted to clarify, that in option 2, we're saving that money, but we do have to go through a redistricting.
Yes, you do.
We also have the outstanding renovation projects, or at least the non-redundant ones, added to option one that aren't added to option two. So I don't want to say a false equivalency, but there's some nuance there between option one and option two.
Well, clarify that for me, just so I'm on the same page you are there.
Yeah. So we've got outstanding renovation projects of renovating Newtown Elementary School, right? More MMW. And then there's an option in here for Council Rock North, which obviously you wouldn't do north and administration at the same time. And then there's renovating Council Rock South. Right, so some of those elements that aren't redundant, like the north one, are then added to the three that we've got in option one. Is it right or wrong?
No, these are standalone, so
Okay.
this is another band.
That's another band.
But
Okay.
your point is good. For the very first item, the renovate Newtown L on the top,
Yeah.
that comes out
Right.
at that point in time.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. And if the board liked the idea of going 6 to 8 in middle school, you wouldn't need to renovate Newtown Elementary School to accommodate Wrightstown overcrowding, right? You
That
could
is
just
true.
renovate it.
That is true.
So that instead of being $40 million project, it's now a $27 million project. And then if you added the grade banding made the 500 student addition to both middle schools currently existing, that's the 107. And then you wouldn't need to have the overcrowding go into the elementary school because it's already been addressed going to the middle school.
Well,
right?
option one, you were still going to have to do, you're still gonna have to make up for this overage that gets you over capacity because of the three other elementaries that are so high.
Right. Mm.
Yeah.
So that, I think that comes back, I asked a question to Dr. Sanko about if we move to a 6 to 8 for both middle schools, does that address this overcrowding? So I'll pose that to you now.
Yeah, and I think what would help everybody is if we put the grade structures against these so that you see what those total numbers are, and those aren't done here. I
Right.
think that would be beneficial to the crew here.
Yeah.
So we can do that for you.
Mr. Hickey?
This is an off-the-wall idea. You can all call me crazy.
You agree?
Thank you. If you talk about the six to 8 model, and I've mentioned this before, why, like you said, if you do what you do now, you have all this extra space in the elementary school. What if we took a current elementary school and made it another middle school on either side of the district? For, just to throw it out there, you leave Holland Middle School alone, and you don't touch it, you don't do anything, you don't add to it, you don't do anything to it. You keep it as a 6, 7, 8 grade model. But what you also do is now you make Holland Elementary a middle school. And I'm just throwing Holland, I don't mean to upset any of the people in Holland Elementary with the special needs, because I'm not saying, I'm just using it as an example. And you make that a 6, 7, and 8 middle school. You would have to redistrict for sure. But when you redistrict, you're still keeping kids in the northern or southern end of the district from K to 8. And that would involve no renovations, it would involve no money, it would involve a lot of work, a lot of work as far as trying to figure it out. But you could do the same thing in the northern end of the district. You would leave Newtown Middle School as is, as a 6, 7, and 8. And then you would pick one of the other schools up there, say Wrightstown, and make that a smaller 6, 7, and 8. They would all go to school together, they would all go to North together. It would involve no renovations, you would just have to move kids from all the elementary schools into the middles, and you'd have to move them, like kids might have to go from Holland Elementary up to Churchville. Kids from Churchville might have to migrate up to Richboro or Rolling Hills. But it could possibly work, and it involves, as far as I see, it doesn't involve any renovation. Because the other thing that always surprises me when we talk about the Cropper study is when you look 10 years out, we're really not changed, there's not really any change in our student population. The only student population change that we're going to see is probably this year as it relates to kindergarten. You know, because we don't know what's going to come into the new case. But, you know, the first grade's going to be the same as it was every other year because that's how it is, and all the way through. And our population's not, it's not increasing. In 10 years from now, I think the difference is maybe a couple hundred kids, possibly. And from what I saw, all that change was basically in Sol Feinstein for some reason. I didn't understand that, but that's where it all was. I mean, I'm just saying, like, I think in some ways, and with all this, we need to think outside the box to not be spending money. Like, all these projects are always like tens and millions of dollars. Whereas I think sometimes if we think a little better, like Mr. Hidalgo said, maybe we just, in some cases, we just do what's needed as opposed to building everything from soup to nuts. But I think, like I said, if you go to a middle school model, I think maybe the idea of having 4 middle schools, 2 on either side, feeding to the high schools, could possibly work, and it wouldn't involve either 71 or $148 million.
So if we did take a look at that. If we close one of the elementary schools, and I don't off the top of my head, I don't know what the enrollment is for Holland Elementary, to say it's 400 kids. We don't have 400 seats in our existing elementary schools to put them. So that would cause us to either build something new, or like we would have to build another elementary school or add on to elementary schools to pick up those 400 seats
We don't have 400 seats where?
total in our elementary schools. So if, just say we closed Holland and say the enrollment is 400. If we closed Holland as an elementary school and made it a middle school, we would have to move those 400 kids into another school. We don't have 400 available seats in our elementary schools to move them to. So it would cause us to either do additions.
Even though we're eliminating a grade? Because now, just remember, now Richboro, Rolling Hills, Hillcrest, they're now K to 5 instead of K to 6.
I see what you're saying. You're switching it. Okay, you're doing both things. You're switching it to K to 5, and then you're closing one school. We'll reevaluate that. If we kept it at 6, 7, and 8, and we took 7 and 8 and moved it into to eliminate the overcrowding at the 2 middle schools, we didn't have enough capacity.
Oh, I agree, totally.
Okay.
I'm talking about going a 6
Go
to
to 6 to 8.
6 to 8 model, using the current middle school and an elementary school that fits. And now you've eliminated the 6th grade at all the other elementary schools where you can repopulate them with whatever school you're choosing to convert.
So you were suggesting 2 elementary schools
One on either side of the
to
district.
convert, right?
So one.
And if you didn't have to do it at the northern end, I mean, if you didn't have to do it at the northern end, then you don't have to do it at all. Then you're only doing it on the southern end. Everybody keeps on saying how overcrowded Holland Middle is, and, you know.
So one, just kind of speaking out loud here, one issue is the difference between a middle school, or an elementary school and a middle school. And David, I'm going to kind of volley this over to you to kind of talk about on the architectural side, the difference between an elementary and a middle school.
Well, I see program and parity. So the gyms, of course, your middle school gyms are semi-competition in size. The elementaries, in the 4 that are the same, are very small elementary gyms. You don't have auditoriums in 2, you would have auditoriums in 2. You're going to be moving classes, you're going to be losing classes because you have to put in tech ed rooms, so you're going to be taking up spaces that are currently classrooms. So you will end up having less capacity than you think you have in those buildings, but
Science labs.
Science labs.
Family
things
consumer
like that.
science.
I mean, all of that is
Athletic
doable
fields.
in a renovation, but I guess you'd have to look as a district. You've got 2 with auditorium and you have 2 without, is that okay? You have 2 that are gyms that are full-size, 2 that aren't.
The only other thing I would, and I don't have an answer to this right now, but if we stick with the example of closing Holland Elementary and making that a middle school, you keep that 6th grade there, right? That would be 6, 7, and 8. When you lift up the rest of the students K to 5, when you put them, remember, we have class size guidelines. So let's just assume that we're going to put those students at Hillcrest because that's the next closest school. Well, you might not have 6th grade at Hillcrest anymore, but your 5th grade numbers require you to break another section and use another classroom. So I just, I'm thinking not the architectural part, I'm thinking about having appropriate space for the students in the building.
No, as I said, I obviously just didn't, I'm not gonna think it all the way through. Just coming to throw some out ideas and see which ones may work or not work. I mean, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'm just trying to look to save renovation dollars.
That is one that we did discuss pretty thoroughly in our conversation after the last meeting.
Mr. Hurtado?
Good enough.
Thanks.
So if we went this route,
So looking up, looking up at the two charts, with option 2, it says realigning grades in the middle there, but we're not really, is that just kind of like a typo? We're not realigning grades. Can you explain that to me?
No, I think you're right. I think we left that in there because it was in the other one. I think you're looking at redistrict. Is what you're doing.
And then, I might agree with Mr. Tate, if we're making a mega school out of Newtown, that might not be the first option, but that's in both of these options. And then another question, and Doug, you can probably answer this quickly. I was always under the impression that the Apollo Middle School was limited to the common areas, and we couldn't add to it, because that would have been an easier fix. I do that, we could have done that already.
So Howland Middle School has some challenges with common areas. We definitely would have to increase the size of the cafeteria. We'd have to talk.
You were talking about that, going out into the.
Probably growing out into where the buses drop off and figuring out how we would, rework some of those
Then
things.
you also mentioned the auditorium wouldn't fit that was the other part of the auditorium. I mean, that's what you said.
Both auditoriums are designed the same size. It was definitely the cafeteria, and we did pick that up in this version.
Okay, so there is a solution there.
Yeah.
Now, out of the 500 additional in the middle school, were you looking to break them up evenly north and south, or did you guys, when you were saying 500, how's that split up?
So that's 500 each.
500 each.
So when you go over to the capacity column, it says 1,000, so that's 1,000 across the two buildings.
Okay. And then I'm wondering if we go back and we study how it was when we had 3 middle schools, and what that looked like. That we fixed. Now we have a problem. So the whole idea could be, I want to reverse engineer and go back to what that looks like. And then of course it's going to be reversing everything, going back and look at that. And you might say 40 million more or whatever, but we have to look at the whole thing. I know that's something I asked, I didn't make the first wave, and I'm not sure, because to me, there's definitely, thinking if we're going about 6, 7, 8, there seems to be an issue with the feeding school into the high schools, and that's where I see the rust. But it's not like we can't look at it, for sure look at it. And the other thing, if we're looking at the Newtown Middle School, and we're starting with the $26 million renovation, complete renovation, we could probably shave off some if we're not doing a complete renovation, if we're gonna actually do an addition onto it, you know what I mean? Not a full renovation, but replace the systems, because I think it was 26 million for,
Which one was?
to renovate Newtown Elementary.
Newtown's like
School.
27 million.
Oh, yeah.
27.
Yeah.
So 27 to 40, so there's an additional,
Well,
13 million to get the kids in there.
Your point is good. In option 1, if you decide to redistrict and Wrightstown is not your challenge, find some other way to handle that student count, you can take that $10 million off. That's 2/3 of the way across the sheet.
Right, and how about all the empty spaces? Are that all the 10 classrooms, thank God I did 10 classrooms, but are all those classrooms going to be taken up by district classes, or are we going to have room to not just add kids to Newtown by doing construction, but is there available space to backtrack some of redistricting that.
There will be available space at Richboro Elementary, correct?
Yes, did I say, yeah, Pittsburgh Elementary School, there's a lot of space there. All right, thanks.
Ms. Oseki?
I have a question, and I'm not saying we should do this, but I just thought I would throw it out and see what everybody else thinks. We're planning to make a lot of expensive decisions here. Should we get a second opinion, like from not Cropper? Like, we're making all these decisions based on what Cropper has told us, but maybe before we spend millions of dollars, we should get another demographer to either back up what Cropper says or, see something different. And I'm not saying we should, but it's just a thought that I had, and I was curious what other people thought.
I can add a little bit of that. So the district used to have a demographer come in every so often. Mr. Tate, Mr. Hidalgo, I think can add to this. I think it was right. And then there would be several years before they'd do it again. And I think it was 21 where the discussion around the table was hiring them for several years to capture what the delta is. Because to your point, the concern was how accurate is this? And there was a lot of reasonable questions raised from members of, is this really accurate? What about this housing district that's going in? What about all of that, right? So the district hired Cropper for several years to capture that delta, and they came back to report roughly that they're about 1% off. And obviously, the farther you go out, I think that it was earlier mentioned 5 years and beyond, they're less accurate, but initially. So it would probably be very difficult and add confusion if we were to bring in another demographer that doesn't have all of that data that Cropper's been looking at and evaluating themselves with to sort of see how accurate they are. So they're roughly, according to them, and about 1% off. So it may just be more confusing. While I understand your point and I agree, I don't know if it solves what you wanted to solve.
Stone?
I would like to really think if, is the best decision to realign the grades? Is that, from an educational point of view, is that really the way we want to go? And then focus on what the options are. Because if we do go with option one, and we're looking at 107,000 to make additions to the middle schools, then you'd only have the 27 million cost to renovate the elementary school in a lesser degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
That, and then do what's needed here at the Chancellor Center, that puts us right at around 117 million, which was your number if we were just increasing taxes by 1%. And that kind of puts us where we can do all of these options, and then what is left that actually has to get worked on? Is it Maureen Welsh? But I think really I know you're making a face.
I'm just listening.
Did I get am I getting the numbers right? That's why I think maybe I don't have the numbers right. 27 plus 107 is 134, and 7 is, that's 141. But you said we get, on a 1% tax increase, we're getting another 34,000, so that kind of covers. But I think part of it is the best decision from an educational point of view going to a 6 through 8. And then what I understand it is the 6th grade you're trying to already get them ready for that middle school. And they seem a little out of place with kindergartners. So for the long range, I kind of like that like working with that model and seeing how we can move forward. But I'm not on the educational side of this. I think that's an administrative decision first, but I think that's an important issue.
So if I could just respond to that, I think what's most important is we do what's best for Council Rock. But I've gone ahead and with Dr. Barnes, we looked at grade bands in Bucks and Montgomery County. And in Bucks County, 6 of the 13 districts have a 6-8 grade band. The 7th is Quakertown. They have a 6th grade center and a 6 to 8 grade building. So, and then in Montgomery County, 12 of the 21 school districts have the 6-8 band. Tom pulled up a little bit of research. Some of it was hard to find. I can't sit here and share with you in detail research, but we certainly did not spend a ton of time on it. But I was curious when I spoke to Tom, when we spoke after the last meeting with David, I was curious what other districts around us and counties did around us. So, again, I think it's most important we do what's best for Council Rock, but that's just some comparable numbers with grade bands in other, in our county.
The numbers, please. 6 of 13, is that right?
Yeah, we have there are 13 Bucks County school districts. Let's not count Quakertown for a minute.
Okay.
So 6 of the remaining 12 have a 6 to 8 grade span. Quakertown has a 6th grade center and a 6 to 8 grade bands. They have 2 different buildings.
And then the balance?
I think that's 7-8 is their other.
7-8?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for
Yeah, I'm
correcting me
sorry,
on
but-
that. I have 6-8, so then I stand corrected. It would be 6 of 13. And then in Montgomery County, out of the 21 school districts, 12 have the 6, 7, and 8 middle school grade bands.
And the balance in both of those were 7 and 8 together? Or did anybody have 5 through 8 or?
6, 7, 8 is what I just shared with you.
But the balance, so the other districts are 7 and 8, K through 6 and 7 and 8, or no?
It varies. So
Okay.
even in Bucks County, New Hope Salisbury has a K to 2 and a 3 to 5, and then a 6 to 8, and then a 9 to 12. If you look in Montgomery County, Cheltenham is K to 4, 5 to 6, 7 to 8, 9 to 12. So some of them are a little bit all over the map. Neshaminy is K to 4, 5 to 8, 9 to 12.
So if we do the 6 to 8, it's 107 million, right? But we still have to renovate the elementary schools and the high schools at some point. So it's not that we do that and we don't do something else. So, and to spend 107 million on top of everything else, we have to have a very good educational reason to do that. I mean, is this really so much better for students to be educated in the 6, 7, and 8 together? I mean, can we justify that? And then maybe do that and push the timing of the other renovations, delay that? I don't know, I'm not so sure. Because it's, if I remember correctly from last time, we could add some capacity to Newtown Middle and the Foley Middle, and then be able to accommodate some of that coming from either Wrightstown or from over capacity at Holland. So, and that was so much cheaper, but that is going away from the 6, 7, 8 model.
That would still be 7-8, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't know, I just want to talk about me. I'm getting really tired. And I would rather look at this again with like fresh mind and go through the numbers and just like sleep over what we talked about. Because it is a lot. And it's a lot of good information. So I don't know, I think
We still have a lot of other things that you're gonna come propose to us too. So that, there isn't a decision that we're gonna make right here, I believe, tonight. So Ms. Khan?
Yeah, I mean, it is 10:30 and I don't even know if my mind has the capacity with all the papers and notes. It's been great discussion. I think there's, as I've stated before, there's a lot more to be had. If that the next time we have this, I guess, next month in the facilities, if we could do that 5 o'clock start time or something again, if possible, somewhere in the future, because it gives us that extra 2 hours and it doesn't push us into 11 o'clock and, yeah, on a school night.
Go, no second, no second.
I was wondering, I guess to echo Linda's point, and I don't know how this fits into, whatever education committee has on its agenda, but I would be really interested in hearing more detail from the administration about, the educational benefits of going to the 6-8 model, because I agree, it doesn't make sense to do it if there's not, a reason to do it. And I don't know if there's a reason to do it or not, just because when I'm waiting for my kids to come out, there are some kids who are 5.5 feet tall, and there are some kids who are 2 feet tall. That's not a reason enough.
Any other questions, Ms. Stone?
I just have one other suggestion, and I don't know if anybody is really interested, or would have buy-in. But I find that, how many of us are sitting in here in this room? I find that it seems difficult to make a decision or to come down, to narrow down the field of options when there's 15 people talking about it. I mean, I'm used to working in, with smaller groups with stakeholders that can sit down and say, okay, let's look at this and maybe come up with 4 models of how it could work. In other words, have 3 or 4 board members, Andy, Tony, that can sit down and actually work these numbers and maybe with our consultants, and maybe come up with that. So whether or not, how we could actually work, if we take option 1, how that would work financially, and option 2, and then come back and present to the whole group some options that we can all work with. I just don't find that this is particularly efficient. I don't know.
Mr. Roosevelt?
Yeah, I think just from my position of one of 9, we have a 10-year problem that Cropper has identified, right? We also, Tony indicated, we've got about a 5 to 10 year window as far as budget size. So looking at some numbers here, Mrs. Stone pointed out a couple arrangements of about 140. The 2 high schools together are about 240. So the problem, I guess, that Ms. Pally was even pointing out is if you take one route, you probably, for example, if we do the route that fits and do something around 140 with 151 capacity, and that takes 10 years, okay? But then when that's done, do you have the ability in the wallet to go back in for a 240 back to back? So that's another element that this board has to think about, regardless of whether it's option 1 or option 2 or some hybrid or something like that, that we have several 10-year problems and we've got more projects than we've got budget for. And I think that's difficult. This is also a master plan where we're planning a sequence and we're trying to figure out what the order is, which could encompass 10 years. The problem is we can't do everything in 10 years, and we may not be able to go into another 10-year after the first 10-year ends. So that's just something to throw out there and think about. And I agree, it is getting late. I was up.
Your doggo has.
Okay, well, thanks, I know it's getting late, just wanted to try to tie it up, because I think we have 6 more slides to go, right? This presentation was just given to us tonight, we didn't have this before to look at. Ms. Minden, did we have this before the meeting today?
No, we did not.
Okay.
We were still working on it this morning.
Just because I know we have to get through these slides, so that there's 6 more slides. If we could just go through them really quickly, because this was more like an introduction. You know, there's a lot of information, and I agree, next time we meet, if we start a little earlier, I don't think we have to start at 5, because we've already spent 4 hours. No, not because it's been other things. But the point is let's get through the rest of the slides so that the public has a quick presentation of the last points you guys wanted to bring out, and then we can, follow up on next week. People, a lot of time to digest this stuff. Does that sound good?
I
I
will,
don't think you have to.
There are 6 slides.
what are the
Did our
6
chairs
slides?
have this document before you?
No.
Right.
No, we did
We
not.
just-
So
we
let's
did more
let's
slides, I
follow
think you
this.
said.
Let's get through it.
I think you said there's 6.
There's 5 more slides.
We don't have this.
We have 5 more slides.
Where?
You do, because you guys have the one feasible approach, and so we broke them up to show what was on the paper.
What's that? I don't have any
Great map.
part in that.
All right, so we have, the next grouping of slides is the one feasible approach. We did expand to include the information that you guys have in the spreadsheets. So again, this is just one feasible approach. This is not necessarily what we're recommending, or it's not what we're recommending. This is just to kind of continue the conversation of what one feasible approach could look like.
We're absolutely not recommending this. This is just,
What's happening with Richboro Middle in this case? I think we all understand the other 4 above it.
Okay, I can jump to that if you guys would like.
Wait, I don't want to jump to that, because I'm not sure what that, yeah.
Okay, so Wrightstown, we have, go here. We have some, possible realignment. And we also discussed some pre-districting as well. Pre-districting was a new term to me, so I'm going to share what that means. That means that if a new development, a farm sells, and it's going to be a new development, that we pre-district that to go to a set school. So if there's a farm up in the Wrightstown area, and we pre-district it to go to Sulphine-Stone or to Newtown. So that's what pre-districting means. Again, it was a new term for me as well. So, so David, if you want to quickly go over the Wrightstown items, I think most of these were reviewed last month as well.
Right, but these are all ways of trying to alleviate pressure on that grade structure, right? And-
Yes.
But these also take care of district issues.
Correct.
Yeah, so you're building a new school to replace the capacity, or you're constructing 6th grade that's pulling 6th grade out of all the elementaries in those House Tract and Richboro, or you're doing a middle school which adds 6th grade, and then you have 3 middle schools is what those represent. So you're kind of back to the pre-middle school concept, and how does the draw work there?
The next item was Chancellor Center, which I think we've spent a ton of time on that, so it's the same slide as before. And then we go to North, and again, that's same things that we've been discussing. Renovate the current building, renovate the building and add admin, construct a new building on the current property, and then construct a new building on the House Track. David, anything to add?
No, that's it.
Can I,
Go ahead.
just one quick question, the $4 million difference between current site and House Track,
Demolition.
we'd still have to demolish if we left the old building though and built on House Track though, right?
That wasn't accounted for in that, though. Good question. I think when Doug and I were looking at that, it was, you're either demolishing because you have to build on that site, or you're just kind of forgetting about that site.
Right.
Yeah, we didn't,
I understand, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Oseki?
I'm sorry, maybe I'm being obtuse, but I don't understand this feasible approach. It doesn't seem feasible to me. It seems very expensive, and I don't even know what.
It's the option within that, but, I think there might be.
I don't even know what, we should, I thought the feasible approach would be like, well, at Wrightstown, we
Right,
did,
right.
you know,
And I think that was more, so can you go back to the last slide? So if we look at,
Wrightstown?
yeah, Wrightstown. So let's just say we choose realign for the Wrightstown space issues. Okay, and then on the next slide, we fix issues with Chancellor Center. And then on the next slide, we renovate the current building at North. And on the next slide, we renovate Newtown Elementary. We renovate Maureen Welch. And then on that end, we Richboro Middle School, raise building and keep property. And then to the next slide.
That's it.
Oh, I thought 24 was on there.
But you're saying you could pick an item from each of those, is
Yeah,
that?
so if we're saying.
That's not one.
Yeah, I think.
I have no idea.
But that's say do that.
Pick your
If we go
ending
through-
side.
If we go through and we add up the money, then say, go back to.
And thank you for answering my question about us.
Realign, so realign, there's no money, okay, so on the next, go to the next one, $7.7 million. And then go to the next one, renovate North, renovate current building, so now we're at about 127 million. Go to the next slide, renovate Newtown, that's another 26, and Maureen Welch, that's another 31. I really am, it's too late for me to do that.
That's 31 million.
So that's 171 million. And then the next slide, we raise the building, that's another $2.6 million. Those are all feasible options that would be one feasible approach that we could take, that you could take.
But it's not feasible because it's outside of our.
$170 million.
Outside of our
numbers.
No, it is feasible because it depends on your timing. You can time it.
Yeah.
And then it's
It's not,
It's feasible over 10 years or whatever, maybe more.
yeah, and like I said, and that's kind of, if you think about it, that's kind of the minimum amount. I just gave you the minimum approach, the lowest cost on each of those slides. So, when you look at that, then, that's a feasible approach. And, you know, depending on what your appetite is for what we do over time. And remember, another feature I didn't mention before we talked about debt is you're phasing in debt over time. So we would plan the debt so that you're only borrowing what you need in each year rather than, oh, we're gonna do a $40 million project, let's borrow $40 million right off the bat. Which is how we handled the last set of construction projects. It was always, let's just borrow what we need for that year. We did a bond issue every year. So that's an approach that the board can take.
And that's what I meant earlier on what is a maximum borrowing plan that is reasonable. You don't have to answer it now. I recognize it takes money. But you just effectively articulated a way to go above the 151 that we thought was the
140.
over maybe a 10-year. Is that the max? Because it doesn't address South, it may not address middle school thing. There's other pieces that are there. Not that I'm advocating for everybody, us to do everything, just. But thank you for the path. Thank you for a path.
And I'm not recommending that path.
I understand.
Under no circumstances am I recommending that path.
Ms. Tillman, question?
Oh, I just wanted to ask, remember that one, there was one spreadsheet that had highlighted in yellow the safe, dry, and
It's in the,
It's in the capital plan.
yeah, thank you.
It's in your book. Or on
So-
Thumb Drive or whatever.
it's on that drive?
Mhm.
Yes.
It's just.
It's a tab, I think it's
Is there a
tab
way to?
6 maybe.
All right, I'll go look for it.
It might be tab 6.
It's a tab.
Tab 6, evaluations, form safety.
Yeah.
That's it.
That, the last slide? Any questions? That's it? All right, so we're gonna get from you, just so we know, the full list,
Yep.
right?
I'm gonna send that
That's gonna be sent
electronically.
out so we can see that, because we did not get that.
Yes.
So we need to have that. Anything else we're missing that we need? Any other questions? And
Just briefly, I think that this kind of, Ms. Stone brought it up, it's where our last meeting kind of ended with, is there an educational value to 6, 7, and 8? Could that be a discussion at an education committee?
education meeting?
We have our pre-meeting coming up, so we can bring it up with the administration and see
Go to town.
if they have time for
Yeah, the short answer is yes, we can do that. I don't know.
I don't know if it's gonna fit in the next one, again, you know, it takes time but definitely.
So would you consider that? What are you looking for us to provide you with next month and as far as facilities?
Financial budget plans.
I mean, I can,
10-year, 15-year.
Well, actually, a better understanding of that financial budget to understand where we're at, because if
Well,
we're
he
at
won't know.
171,
Like how much
right,
could
but
we
we have
borrow?
117 to start.
Yeah, and how much could we borrow this year and then next year?
you can borrow,
If you borrow it all now, you won't, we'll have nothing.
but we can plan for tax increases to build that number up to what you want it to be, so
Yeah,
I don't wanna build a borrowing plan, we need to build a borrowing plan around what's best for students.
project.
Not build what we wanna do around a borrowing plan. Within reason, of course, but, so I mean, that's.
We need to have some feasible options to present to you, and then
Yeah.
you can work the numbers.
Yes, and I would gladly bring PFM in at that point. We would put together like a plan. So we would bring them in and put together, you know, we would borrow this much in, you know, and obviously we'd have to work with Doug and David to know, like, you know, where are we looking at doing this project?
Yeah, you should need draw schedules to do that.
Yeah, we can't do it.
Yeah, we would provide you with those.
Yeah.
And we could, you know, with all the options, we could do 100 draw schedules, and it depends on the timing of different projects. So, I mean, would we want to, what facility-wise though could we come back and do with this?
Mr. Tate?
Thank you. I'm really eager to try to drive at least one decision forward, and I personally pick Chancellor. So there's a couple of data points that I think would be useful. One is a ballpark on what we would have to spend to renovate leased space for our purposes. I mean, you know, it may not be a lot of money, but if we're moving the administration into leased space, we've got to spend money to, furnish the place for them.
No, you don't. It doesn't work like that. So when you lease a building, I know because of experience, when you lease a building, when you negotiate the price per square foot, that includes the renovations that want to be done in the building.
Okay, good.
That's when I said $25 per square foot. I think that's a reasonable number based on what I know. But of course, if they want to go and find exactly the kind of building, that they can have the negotiations, maybe they can get the price different, I don't know. But $25 per foot, assuming, and that will include the renovation.
That's assuming customized space. Okay,
Yes.
and the other is a moving expense, which isn't,
Right.
please.
And you're gonna have to do that anyway.
Yeah,
No,
no matter what we do, we have to
You're
move
gonna have to move out of it.
everybody.
Can you check the boiler cost too at Richboro, or chiller costs, I mean, at Richboro Middle, to know, like, confirm whatever it would take?
Okay, so get as much information on that.
Yeah.
And does the board want to meet earlier next month?
Yes.
6 o'clock be sufficient?
I don't know.
Yeah.
What's on the agenda?
You said 26 to 30.
We're gonna be talking about custodial
Yeah.
services.
Let's meet at 3 p.m.
It's an all-day event.
Do we get these slides, the ones that they were not in the presentation?
We'll send them out tomorrow.
I'm fine with 5.
I'm fine with 5 too, 'cause even if we end later, or if we end at 8,
That'd be a
great,
nice surprise.
yes. But it doesn't seem to be that trend.
Yes.
I'm fine.
Okay with 5?
I'm not here, yes.
You mean the next facilities?
Yeah.
Yes.
I may be late, but that's all right.
Good with 5?
You know what that is, what your next.
Cover work?
Good meeting.
But hopefully it'll be after.
All right, any other questions? Concerns? We are good, we are adjourned.
Yeah.